No, I think you're talking garbage.
Rubbish.
Garbage.
Good afternoon, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry. You're listening to the Two Mikes on Talk Sport. Porky's still suffering. A day after the Merseyside derby ended up a rather one-sided affair. He's also been named as the man with the dumbest outrage of the season after claiming that Daniel Craig has no business being a Liverpool fan. Today we've got the other big game of the weekend, Arsenal against Manchester City. And of course it's all happening up in Scotland as well, where apparently fights are breaking out and Celtic may indeed win the league. 08717 223344. Also coming up on the show, we've got the Porky Sermon. For those of you in need of spiritual guidance on a Sunday afternoon, you won't want to miss it. You're listening to the Two Mikes with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry on Talk Sport. The name's Porky. Porky Parry. What on earth are you on? What on earth are you on? I mean, a simple throwaway remark yesterday about Daniel Craig turns into yet another media firestorm.
And you have, of course, completely misled the audience from word one, from minute one.
Absolutely not.
You said that I objected to Daniel Craig being a Liverpool fan.
Well, you did.
Absolutely wrong. I did not.
Yes, you
I
did.
Object to
you said,
James
why on
Bond.
earth is Daniel Craig? Your first words were, why on earth is Daniel Craig at Anfield?
No,
right?
exactly.
You didn't seem to know
I did.
that Daniel Craig has been a lifelong... But he's been a lifelong Liverpool fan.
I have no problem whatsoever with Daniel Craig being a Liverpool fan, but when Daniel Craig becomes James Bond, which he is, he's currently James Bond. He was in the last James Bond film. He'll be in the next James Bond film.
He might be.
The franchise belongs to him, and he is James Bond. I do not believe that the world's most famous iconic character, ever born, produced, written about and developed in Britain, should then suddenly attach himself to any one football club. I'm not having a go because it's Liverpool. It's to any club.
I think, as many people do, that this is a bit of a smokescreen.
No, it's
because
not.
What we know about you from previous encounters with you is that whenever there's a bad story that you don't want to talk about concerning Everton, you immediately sort of start dislocating pieces of other news and putting out what you would regard as, contentious subjects in order to avoid talking about the fact that Everton have lost again.
No.
And the Liverpool have now broken, I think, a new record, have they not, in beating Everton in local derbies? Is that not the case? Is that not the case?
We'll come to that in a second.
Just answer yes or no, please.
No, because you answered the whole... you opened the whole show by saying the Daniel Craig issue. Now, I
didn't actually. I just said there's still a bit of fallout to be taken care of from the Merseyside derby.
Daniel Craig was sitting one away from Kenny Dalglish. Kenny Dalglish is often voted as the most influential and the most famous and the most popular Liverpool player of all time.
And as some people pointed out, number 7... not far away from 007.
Exactly. Thank you very much indeed. And he's sitting 2 seats away from him. Daniel Craig, if he wants to support Liverpool, should do so in silence during the time when around the world,
What do you mean in silence?
He is James Bond.
He's not James Bond. He's Daniel Craig.
He's James Bond. To all intents and purposes, to everybody, if you flash that man's face up on the screen, they would say, oh, look, it's James Bond.
No,
they wouldn't say it's Daniel Craig. They'd say it's James Bond.
Well, why did you say initially when you saw his face on the screen, oh, look, what Daniel Craig's doing at Anfield? What's he doing?
I said James Bond. Oh, I see, Liverpool fan. Gary Neville, a man of immense quality as an analyser and commentator on football.
Tremendous manager.
Sent out a tweet yesterday saying, I never knew that James Bond was a Liverpool fan.
Yeah.
So if that doesn't endorse it, I don't know what does.
OK, well, I don't think you do know what does, is I think Gary Neville, albeit heavily disguised, was being amusing. He was being ironic. He was using his humour.
His words are there.
To take the mickey.
Didn't know James Bond was a Liverpool fan. I mean, I don't know why people got so outraged about it. All I'm saying is, to go that public, to go into the director's box of Liverpool Football Club during an Liverpool game... He
goes to Liverpool Football Club on a regular basis.
I don't believe he does go on such a regular basis.
There are loads of... Did you see the picture that I put out, which somebody had actually sent me, which is a picture of him with Michael Myers and Kenny Dalglish from a previous game?
Fair enough.
He goes to loads of games.
That is fine. But what I'm saying is, I believe that he's got to keep a very low profile about who he supports in any area of his life, because he is so commercially productive, he is so commercially valuable. Anything he endorses, other people will. And now you could have a whole raft of impressionable young kids, right, who've got a James Bond gun and a James Bond car.
Do you think kids have got James Bond guns and cars these days, or are you still locked in the 1970s?
No, and they're probably members of the James Bond fan club.
No,
and
they're
they
not.
Look up and they
Nobody's
see James
a member
Bond.
of the James Bond fan club.
They see James Bond.
Absolute rubbish.
in the director's box at Liverpool and they think, I'm now going to be a Liverpool fan. It's a very, in my view, unfair and rather calculated way of trying to make themselves popular around the world by parading James Bond in the director's box at the start of the most explosive game at Anfield this season. That's the only point I was making.
Do you know where Daniel Craig is from?
Chester.
Do you know where his mother lives?
I don't really care where his mother lives.
You don't care where his mother lives?
Not that I care for his mother. I care for everybody's mother.
You seem to care an awful lot about him being somebody who he is not.
No, this is a terribly irrelevant question.
His mother lives on the Wirral.
Great. It's a great place to live. So does Rafa Benitez.
Yes, indeed. And he, of course, is an
ex-Liverpool
manager.
Yes.
The
a lot of them seem to live there.
Yes, indeed. And that's why he is a Liverpool fan and has been a Liverpool fan for many years. And the fact that you are confusing reality with fiction
I'm not.
Comes as no surprise to me, but it comes as a great surprise to an awful lot of people, including the Liverpool Echo, who thought that your rant was quite out of order.
No, they didn't.
And who took it terribly seriously.
No, they didn't.
I think most people will agree, like with Glenn, who has texted in this particular message.
Yes.
Porky, you're making yourself sound a massive fool.
No,
he's an actor, you idiot.
No,
and what does it matter who he supports?
I don't care what you say. I'm not. I'm very,
I know
very
you don't care what
solid
anybody says,
in my thought here.
Yeah, but your thought
process. Have you read all the James
is
Bond
ridiculous.
books? Have you read all the James
I haven't
Bond
read
books?
any James Bond books.
You haven't read any James Bond books. Okay. Have you seen all the James Bond films?
I've probably seen most of them. I think there's
how
a
many
couple
times?
I haven't seen.
How many times in a James Bond film? And I've read all the James Bond books, by the way, when I was 15.
I don't believe
yes,
you.
I did.
All right, name them then.
What?
Name the books you've read.
We haven't got time. There's too many of them. We haven't got time. I will list them for you in the next break.
I remember when we did a James Bond quiz, you got about 2 out of 10.
Right, well, let me tell you this. During the course of reading all the James Bond books and watching all the James Bond films, not once have I heard the man who was playing James Bond express an opinion like, for instance, whilst being tortured by Goldfinger or Thunderball villain. What's his name?
Thunderball villain?
Who's Thunderball?
Well, you're the man who read all the books.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. I've never heard him say...
There's nobody called Thunderball. There is no one called Thunderball.
Before you tortured me to death, Goldfinger... Just tell me how Liverpool got on today. I've never seen that line in a James Bond film.
Well, that's because James Bond in the book is not portrayed by an actor. That's because James Bond in the book is portrayed by the author's pen. Ian Fleming created James Bond as a fictional character. He is not, in fact, the man who is personified as James Bond on the celluloid screen.
You must admit that my little quip, rather amusing quip about the Goldfinger scene in which he's lying on the slab and the laser beam is slowly going to cut him in half from the middle of his legs upwards, right? That was rather good the way I did it, wasn't it?
Well, I would say rather bitter and twisted, actually, because, of course, what everybody must now remember is the look on your face, just as we finished the show yesterday, when you thought that Everton had equalised, and in fact then, just before we were to hand over to Adrian Durham for Match Day Live in the afternoon, it turned out that Liverpool had gone 2-1 up.
Yes.
And your face was an absolute picture of horror, right? So you've now decided to take your nastiness out on poor old Daniel Craig.
No.
And this is what you said.
Yes.
Do you expect me to talk, Goldfinger?
Yes.
No, Mr. Bond. I expect you to freeload your way into the director's box at Liverpool.
I thought it was very funny,
I think that
actually.
is a really appalling slur. First of all, you have no idea whether he was paying for his ticket.
Expect me to talk, Goldfinger?
He may well have actually.
No, Mr. Bond.
He may even be a season ticket holder for all you know.
I expect you to freeload your way into the director's box
once
at Anfield.
again, I would advise you to contact my learned friends, because if you've accused Daniel Craig of getting a free ticket when he didn't get a free ticket...
Do you think he paid for his ticket?
Well, he may well have done.
Well, if he did, congratulations and well done. For a multimillionaire, you're indeed a generous man.
Yes.
I just do not think I just don't think it sits right at all that a man who is one of the most famous faces in the world...
What about Rocky? How do you think Rocky would appear to his fans if they knew he was an Everton fan?
Rocky is a man who has, at times...
Rocky is as much of a hero to people as James Bond.
Made an allegiance to Everton, and it's all been on a business basis.
So he's not really an Everton fan?
When the sixth film came out...
Are you saying he's not really an Everton fan?
When the sixth film came out, Rocky Balboa...
Why are you not answering any of my questions?
Because I've never asked him, so I don't know. When the sixth film came out, Rocky Balboa, as far back as, I think, 2007...
The sixth film?
Yes, he
What do you
appeared...
mean the sixth film?
The sixth in the Rocky series. There was a Rocky franchise.
There was never a Rocky 6.
It was not called Rocky 6. It wasn't called Rocky 6.
Well, what was it called?
It was the sixth one involving the characters from the Rocky films, okay? And
what was it called?
A chap called I've just told you, Rocky Balboa.
No, it wasn't.
It was.
No.
Anyway.
Incorrect.
Robert Earl was a shareholder of Everton at the time. He had quite a big branch of shares, about a third of them, I think. He, of course, had worked with Sylvester Stallone over in the United States, in Hollywood, for 30 years.
Oh, yeah. Well, they own Planet Hollywood together, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. And both had big ownerships in Planet Hollywood, a restaurant chain. Oh, yeah. And it was a business move. But I mean...
Oh, so Rocky Balboa is not, in fact, an Everton fan?
The Rocky... No, if you just let me answer, please. The Rocky Balboa situation is that Rocky Balboa was never, ever...
And why did he film the last Rocky film at Everton, then,
never,
at Goodison Park?
Ever anything like as famous
can somebody please tweet
as James Bond.
Can somebody please... Oh, I don't think you're right about that. It
didn't have the longevity.
I don't think you're right about that.
And what's more, he wasn't British, and it didn't stick to a particular country for 50 years.
I see. So the fact that several different people have played James Bond doesn't matter to you?
The current James Bond is Daniel Craig, who was in the director's box at Liverpool yesterday. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
No, I don't, because
so
we
do
don't
all the people out there, by the way. They know that I have a point.
Yeah, well, you don't have a point,
They know I have...
He's talking rubbish, because he has actually not said that he's making the next James Bond film. So at the moment, the James Bond
well, I can tell you now, I believe he will.
Well, you might believe so, but technically speaking, there is no James Bond at the moment. So whether he supports Liverpool or not is not the issue.
Anyway, we'll come back to that. Bond.
We'll come back to that. Everybody thinks you've made a massive tool of yourself, which even for you is unusual. Well, just in case any of you forgot, there was actually a game of football on at Anfield yesterday because of all the nonsense surrounding Daniel Craig and Porky's outrage about it. We are going to speak to a Liverpool legend about the game itself. He is, of course, Ian Rush, and we're delighted to say that he's managed to find some time to talk to us on TalkSport. Ian, a very good afternoon to you. Welcome.
Good afternoon, lads.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. What a fantastic game of football yesterday. I was here personally with Porky yesterday as the Everton equaliser went in. You've never seen a guy so happy, and literally, seconds later, back down in the dumps, 2-1 Liverpool, and it never went back really after that.
Shocking. It was shocking. It was shocking. Did you give Everton any chance even in the early parts of the game, Ian? Because when they revert, when Mr. Koeman decided, right, we'll have three at the back and flying full-backs, wingers, whatever, did you ever think it was going to work?
No, to tell you the truth, Mike, no, really. I thought it was the team that played. I was confident. I'm never confident in any derby, but I was pretty confident in this derby because you got 3 or 4 missing, and I think it comes down to the squad then. And I think Liverpool have a stronger squad, even though we had a couple missing. Yeah, we had a stronger squad. And to tell you the truth, even when I didn't think Everton were going to score, and when they did, you never know what's happened. But looking back now, I was always confident that Liverpool would go on and win the game.
Yeah, it was so difficult for Everton. When you lose a player like Seamus Coleman, who's been a real driving force, Rushy, this season for Everton. I mean, not just a captain, but a leader, and really dictating the whole pace of the team and at what speed they go forward. That is a huge omission and something you've got to get over, but it was a real test to Mr. Koeman. He didn't appear to have got it right.
Well, I think when you're playing derby games, he played a lot of young lads, didn't he?
He did.
I'm surely they'll come on for that anyway. But in certain situations, you play your experienced players in derbies, and Coleman for me has been absolutely fantastic for Everton, and he leads by example, doesn't he? Both for Everton and Republic and all that, and he was definitely missed without a doubt.
Yes.
The other thing I was interested in, Ian, was just before the game, Romelu Lukaku was being talked about as, the number one footballer in the Premier League, the number one striker, top goal scorer. Yeah. I looked at some analysis of his game yesterday, and he only touched the ball once in Liverpool's penalty area for the whole 90 minutes. That's pretty bad, isn't it?
It was difficult for him, to tell you the truth. When you go in there, he's playing up front by himself. He's having to flick on headers and get on the end of it, isn't he? But also when you look at it, you've got Origi, then you got Morelos. He's just coming back from injury. 3 Belgium strikers there. And you're thinking, Lukaku, he's been fantastic all season, but yesterday just wasn't one of his days.
It wasn't one of his days at all. The thing is, Ian, Everton and Liverpool have both got to get back up there and try and topple Manchester as the king city of football in this country again. Liverpool are closer to it at the moment than Everton are, but can you see those days coming back? Can you see, that fantastic excitement 6 years in the 80s when the Premier League title, First Division title, never left the city? I want to get back to those days.
Well, I agree. I'd like to see the same myself. In the 80s, we had the two best teams in Europe, not just in England, I would say. They're absolutely fantastic teams. And, it's going to take a bit of time. I think Liverpool, obviously, on the right lines. I think Everton, they do need a new stadium. They do need the owners to plough some money into it, and hopefully they'll come good again. But, it's going to be hard to beat them days in the 80s, isn't it?
It certainly is. What do you think of Lukaku individually, Ian, without, over-egging the pie, as you are one of the legendary strikers from that part of the world? How do you think Lukaku matches up? And do you think that he has a case that at this stage of his career he feels he's justified in going elsewhere?
Well, it depends what he wants. Really. At the end of the day, I think Everton give him a lifeline, didn't they? By doing that, he's experienced, he's been around, he knows what to do, and hopefully maybe he's learned, he's grown up now. As he's grown up, he's been brilliant for Everton this year, and I think if he's a great player. He's a great main man up front. If you're playing with one up front, there's no one better than him. So teams are looking to play one up front. Surely he would be on the market there, but I think Everton have helped him out, and. People talk about is Koeman going to Barcelona, is Lukaku going there. If Everton are going on to bigger and better things, they have to keep hold of these players.
Yeah, they do.
And they have to keep hold of the manager as well. How do you think the top four's working out at the moment? Because a few surprises left. I mean, amazingly, Chelsea are now being said to be kind of teetering slightly. They lost to Crystal Palace yesterday. They got Manchester City coming up next. If they lose that, then suddenly they're only 4 points ahead of Manchester City.
Well, it's game on then, isn't it? I think looking at it, they've had a little blip. I still think Chelsea will win the title. Big game today, Arsenal, Manchester City. If Manchester City win, puts the pressure on. Tottenham are right in there, aren't they? So it's not over and done with yet, but I still feel Chelsea will win it because they won't lose many games. But it'd be interesting for the Premiership if they, from a neutral point of view, if they did lose and put pressure on Conte, isn't it?
That's right. It's all about strikers, Ian, isn't it? And Harry Kane is missing from Spurs, but you've just talked about the depth of squads. Spurs still look very impressive, and if anybody can overtake Chelsea, it will be them, won't it?
Yeah, I would think so. Looking at it there, and I think when they lost Harry Kane, because he's another one who's had a fantastic season, I'd have put virtually my house on Tottenham not being the same team because he's absolutely fantastic. But in fairness to the manager, they haven't missed him, and that was a great result against Burnley. People say it was only Burnley, but Burnley haven't lost many at home this season.
No, they haven't.
To go there and win 2-0 there has put them right back in the picture.
It certainly has.
It does, yeah.
And I mean, it's assuming that Liverpool finish in the top four, looks very much like that will happen.
Yeah.
What does Jurgen Klopp need to do, you think, Ian, in the summer to prepare himself to play in the Champions League? Because, I mean, the defence at the moment for Liverpool is not really a great Champions League defence, is it?
I think you look at Manchester City, all of them, there's not many great defences about. So I think when you look at that, the main aim is to get in the Champions League. And looking at the running on paper, it looks a decent running for us. But you never know with the English Premier League. But I think to make the Champions League, and I'm sure we'll be looking to buy 2 or 3 players. And then I think the pre-season is most important. I think we know Jurgen wants his own pre-season, and he wants his players getting fit and available. And I think if you can get 2 or 3 players in, get the pre-season, and I think next year is to see how far we can go 4 foot upwards. Yeah,
I totally agree with you. Ian, what do you think about the lack of homegrown players? Because in the Liverpool team you played in against the Everton teams you played against, there was a lot of homegrown people there, and Everton and Liverpool went on to appoint managers like Joe Royle and your string of managers, all local people. Doesn't seem to happen as much these days.
Yeah, I think especially from the supporters' point of view, they love to see the local lad come good, don't they?
Yeah.
And the Carragers and the Gerrards, from Liverpool and all that. And that is sadly lacking at the moment, and we need to bring that. And we talk about people and that, but we know we lost one absolutely incredible coach, Ronnie Moran. 49 years at Liverpool, and he would have given anything to see the local people come through. So we need coaches like that as well. That the locals get them into it.
Yeah.
And, hopefully, that's what supporters love, seeing the local lad come good.
That's right. Do you like Tom Davis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Up to a point.
I think he's learning, isn't he? You've got Ross Barkley and all that, haven't you? You get them, and you're thinking, these people, give them a bit of time and all that, but it's knowing when actually to play them.
Yeah, exactly. And how long to play him for sometimes, if you know what I mean. Because I thought Koeman did a very good job with Ross Barkley at the start of this season when he said to him, look, buck up or you're out, and dropped him for a few games, and he came back in sparkling form. A bit of sort of, hard love, really.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think yesterday he was most probably trying too hard. He was trying to dictate and all that. And one thing his passion for the game, and that was incredible. There, and Koeman was right. Sometimes you've got to learn from that, and I think the same will be with Davis.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Absolutely right. And that's just one final question about Everton, Ian. I mean, how long will it take Everton, do you think, to get into the top four and to play on a level playing field with those clubs above them? The top six, I guess we're talking about.
Yeah, it's talking about top six. I think it's going to be difficult for them, but I think it's up down to the owners, isn't it? They need to go out and spend. I believe they've got the right manager, and they've got some great players, and the manager's got to look for what he wants and entice them to get to Everton. They're a massive club, Everton. So if they can entice them to do that, then the owners have got to give the manager the money to go out and spend. And until they do that, when they get the new stadium, then that'll help as well.
Yeah, right.
Oh, well, I think that's Russia. I think that's key to it. And by the way, I'm delighted, to be honest, that Liverpool have stayed where they are and they're rebuilding Anfield, because we knocked down some of our old stadiums in this country far too easily and replaced them with plastic stadiums. So I'm glad that Anfield's staying where it is, and it'll be great if the other football stadium in the city is built on the River Mersey. I think then the city have got a great chance of coming back to the supremacy of power.
No, that would be great, wouldn't it? Sometimes you've got to be careful with new stadiums as well. Look, when Arsenal moved to the Emirates, and look at West Ham, it can take a year or two to adapt to it. But I'm sure with Everton supporters and all that, once they get to that new stadium, it comes the atmosphere.
Yes.
And Liverpool and Everton fans. That incredible atmosphere, and I don't think that'll ever go away.
No, it won't. Well, speaking of Liverpool fans, Ian, did you see James Bond there yesterday? Apparently, he was at Anfield in the guise of Daniel Craig.
Yes, I was there with him. Yes, so we had a little chat. He's a big red, so we're okay.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not right, is it, that James Bond suddenly becomes a great, massive Liverpool fan?
It's not James Bond, it's Daniel Craig.
My name is Bond, James Bond, Liverpool fan. Has he got a season ticket? I accused him of freeloading into the director's box. That's a bit unfair, isn't it?
No, he's a big. He's obviously from Chester, isn't he? And all that on the Whittle, and basically he's been on a couple of pre-season things in America, so. I can say he's a true red.
You can vouch for it. Very well said, Ian. Thank you very much indeed. Enjoy the games this afternoon.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
A true Liverpool legend who has endorsed the absolute and utter final word on Daniel Craig, that Daniel Craig is a true red, in his words. He can vouch for him. He's been on a couple of pre-season tours.
In America.
A couple of pre-season tours.
In America.
No, and he's a regular visitor to Anfield. You are a disgrace. And according to somebody who hasn't given a name here, they've tweeted in, is Porky going to have a word with Forrest Gump for supporting Villa?
Ha, 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 ha.
This is Talk Sport.
Diamonds are forever. They are all I need to please me. They can stimulate and tease me. They won't leave in the night. I've no fear that they might desert me.
You see what we've done now? This is this James Bond thing going through the whole day now.
Do you know what? It's we're not going to get away from James during the show today, because a bit later on in the show we're talking to a chap who's invented this iron suit, haven't we?
The real Iron Man, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and
his name's Richard Browning.
Richard Browning, a brilliant man.
I can't tell if he's an Everton fan or not.
No,
does that matter to you?
Well, I was going to talk to you about that. What I was going to say is that. I don't know why we're still amazed that people can put on rocket-propelled suits that lift them off the ground, because...
Well, because news is something you don't see every day, right?
No, but...
By your definition, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, but don't you remember the Thunderball... Going back to Thunderball, the film now, I think
Thunderball.
It's the third Bond film.
Yeah.
Do you not remember he beat a bloke up and smashed him to death, who was posing as a woman who'd just come back from a funeral? He then runs out onto the balcony, he puts on a rocket-powered suit, and he takes off, and he goes, about half a mile, and lands by his car. So it was going 50 years ago.
Well, it wasn't going 50 years ago. Once again, that was a depiction of somebody with a jetpack in a movie, right? It doesn't mean the actual thing existed. Now, a couple of tweets that I must read out to you.
Right.
This one from the Sporting Messiah says, Mike Parry's the only person I know who gets Ian Rush on, and all he wants to talk about is Everton. #plank.
Well, hang on. Mr. Rush, Ian Rush, although he, starred for Liverpool in a huge way and was one of the greatest strikers ever played in the top division in this country, commentary does, of course, have links to the fact that he was born and brought up on Deeside, who played for Chester, so, we have an awful lot in common, and his greatest moments were in 2 cup finals, well, amongst his greatest moments, 2 cup finals against Everton, which he scored 2 goals in each one. And Kevin Ratcliffe, whenever he sees him coming down the street, does a U-turn and walks the other way.
Why?
Because he was the captain and defender of Everton on both occasions.
Sounds like that's what he did at the time when he was playing.
And it was very frightening.
How about this from Jonesy, who says, my fiancée just had her first taste of the 2 mics and shouted, "Oh, do shut up," to Mr. Parry within 5 minutes.
Really? Why?
Hashtag Porky strikes again.
Why would you say that?
Rubbish.
No.
Lee says this, Mr. Parry is having a psychotic episode, mixing up fiction and reality. Keep him calm and I'll get him collected and taken to hospital.
No, that is not the case at all.
Other people are suggesting that Spider-Man, both Tom Holland and previously Andrew Garfield, are both Arsenal fans.
Really?
Apparently.
Yeah, but they truly are fictional characters, i.e.
What do you mean? What's the difference between Spider-Man and James Bond?
The James Bond depicts a man who could exist in the intelligence services. Spider-Man is just a completely fictitious
I don't accept that.
creature that doesn't exist.
No, he's not a creature, he's a man.
Stop.
He just has special powers.
He's not. We all know that's an utter load of rubbish.
What, you mean? What, are you saying that Spider-Man is a load of rubbish, but that James Bond isn't?
James Bond was based on fact.
No,
James Bond was written by Ian Fleming, who was a military intelligence officer during and after the war, and who based a lot of his highly successful books, which turned into the biggest film franchise in the history of cinema.
How do you know there isn't somebody?
A lot of fact.
How do you know there isn't somebody like Spider-Man working for the intelligence services?
Oh, rubbish! You know as
How
well
do you
as
know
I
that?
do.
You don't know that,
Mate. It's not even worth me answering that question.
So you're now
know.
so after having spent the best part of the last 24 hours ranting and raving about a fictional character, you're going to point out to me that I'm being ridiculous.
Well, you are. Yeah, you're building ridicule on what I presume to be a cogent argument on a character based on fact. M existed. M, who was James Bond's boss in all the films.
And M was a football fan, I believe. M was a football fan in the books.
Daniel Craig's...
M was a football fan in the books.
Well, that's what I'm saying. M actually existed. Ian Fleming, his own boss was called M. That's why he based it on that. Now, listen, if I told you that the buzz around Newcastle is that Rafa Benitez is going to... By the way, have we told our audience that we might witness Celtic lift the Premier League title in
it's
Scotland
half-time currently, 2-0 to Celtic. They've just started the second half, I believe.
Where's that, away at Hearts?
It's at Hearts, yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it, yeah.
Well, I don't know why I said that like Newcastle.
Tynecastle.
How about this? So Porky's
Cullen,
new law, says Jay, when he's ahead of the FA, no famous people allowed at footy games unless at Everton.
No.
People are concluding that you really are the Donald Trump of talk sport.
Honestly, you've clouded the argument so much. Everybody knows. Look, a few hundred people have contacted me. Well, a few thousand maybe. A few thousand to say that, you're off your rocker and all that kind of stuff.
Mostly everybody.
But that means there are millions left out there who understand exactly the point I'm making.
What do you mean, the ones who haven't bothered contacting you?
That if you use the influence of massive fame, of massive popularity, of massive influence... It can strike an unfair advantage within any organisation.
By the way, speaking of an unfair advantage, where did you go before this show started?
Where did I go?
Yeah.
Tell you what happened, actually. I'll be absolutely truthful about this.
Yeah, let's be truthful.
I was,
first time for everything.
I was at Waterloo Station.
Were you?
And for some unknown reason, there were a load of Oxford and Coventry fans there.
Some unknown reason. That would be because they're playing in the Checker Trade final,
yeah, but hang on. Oxford fans come in from the west, so they would have gone to Paddington Station.
Well, they must have been coming into Waterloo.
Coventry fans, no. Coventry fans come from the north of London, from the Midlands.
Yes.
They would have come into King's Cross or Euston.
They're not all coming from Coventry and Oxford, are they?
So I don't know what these Oxford and Coventry fans were doing in a station.
Let me explain it to you.
In South London.
Well,
I just don't get it.
Well, is it possible, do you think, in that addled mind of yours, that actually Coventry fans and Oxford fans might live somewhere other than Coventry and Oxford?
Well, very few, I would imagine.
What?
Oxford haven't got many fans anyway because they haven't really been a very successful football club over a number of decades.
Yeah, but it's possible that a couple of handfuls of them might be living in somewhere like Stockbroker Belt, Surrey, isn't it?
Well, I suppose so.
Yeah, go on.
I'd find it very unusual if they did.
Very unusual.
As for Coventry, well, their club has fallen to pieces at such a rate.
Well, they're mostly from Northampton now, aren't they, Coventry fans?
Yeah, I should imagine most of their fans are demoralised. Anyway, it so happened that I engaged in conversation with
Where did you meet these fans?
On the platform at Waterloo.
On the platform?
And next minute, I got dragged down into this cellar bar where they all were because they wanted me to meet their friends.
Dragged down?
Yeah, I was very happy to come and say hello.
Well, we have got a tweet from somebody who said that they met you in the Weatherspoons at Waterloo Station.
There isn't one.
There isn't a
No,
Wetherspoons.
so that can't be true. There's not a Wetherspoons at Waterloo Station.
Well, I'm hoping that they will then text me or tweet me now to say exactly where they met you.
As I said.
And if it wasn't in a Wetherspoons, where was it, please?
As I said, they said to me, could you come meet our mates? It'd be great, just say hello, have a picture taken. I did all that. It wasn't a problem at all.
There was no drink involved.
Of course not. If you're trying to indicate some nefarious reason for being in a licensed premise before
you seem to spend a lot of time
today.
in this pub in Waterloo, because I seem to recall that the last time there was a big fixture at Twickenham, that you followed some rugby fans into the place for purely research purposes.
I did just find out what was going on. Anyway, you rudely interrupted me when I was telling you there's a buzz around Newcastle that Rafa Benitez is about to pledge his troth to Newcastle, whether he gets them up or not. But he will get them up, won't he?
Pledge his troth?
Yes.
What, you mean he's not going to leave?
Yes, exactly.
Well, I mean, doesn't that depend on who offers him a job?
I've been given a report here which says Rafa Benitez is... Well, of course he's got a job.
I said depends on which job he gets offered, doesn't it?
Oh, you mean outside of Newcastle?
Yes.
Well, I suppose so. I think he's on a big bonus to get him up, and then, on the promise of a bumper season next
Celtic
season.
has scored another goal. Look, 3-0.
3-0.
I'm telling you.
OK, my prediction is that the Scottish Premier League title is heading to Celtic Park.
That'll be the first prediction you've got right this weekend, because I should say... Yeah. Oh, hang on, no, it's been disallowed.
I've been disallowed, yeah. Okay.
Porky jinx. Brilliant.
So,
because you also your other great bet yesterday was your charity bet, which you haven't discussed. Would you like to tell us what that was?
What?
Your charity bet yesterday.
A charity bet?
Yeah, what was it?
Well, I thought that Chelsea would beat Crystal Palace by more than 3.5 goals. Yeah. That didn't happen.
No, not only did it not happen, they didn't even win the game.
But that's the weirdest result of the weekend.
Unbelievable.
No, it's the weirdest result of the season.
Well, the thing that I find astonishing, and we'll come back to Benitez in a second, is that from having an unassailable lead at the top of the Premier League, people are now saying, well, hang on a second, Chelsea might now drop it, might lose it, might kind of bottle it.
Manchester City are going to Chelsea, aren't they?
That's the next game for them,
It's at Chelsea, isn't it?
I believe so.
And if City pull off another surprise,
which they could,
then it'll be down to 4 points lead at the top.
If Spurs win their next game.
And remember, Newcastle lost it when they had a 12-point lead at the top. So, and talking about Newcastle, right?
Yes.
My report says Rafa Benitez stays at Newcastle next season with the club on the brink of an immediate return to the Premier League. They move 10 points clear of third place Huddersfield at the top of the Championship table after beating Wigan 2-1 at St James. Benitez will be handed the funds to strengthen his squad in the summer and looks set to retain the same level of control he's enjoyed following relegation, i.e., control of all the transfers and all that. He was allowed to rebuild the first-team squad. The move will be enough to convince the 56-year-old that he can build on the success he's enjoyed in his first full season at the club, ending the interest of West Ham, who lost again yesterday at Hull. That was a fourth West Ham defeat on the trot.
Mind you, West Ham have said, as you would have heard just there in the news, that Mr. Bilic's job is safe, haven't they?
I think they might have said that about Sam Allardyce before he left the club a few years back.
There is that, yes. I suppose.
Although I'm not accusing them of being duplicitous because they handled that very fairly. However,
but they still are not at the moment, as far as we know, renewing his contract, are they? Slaven Bilic. I mean.
Well, Ms. Karen Brady, Lady Brady, who we'll see in a couple of weeks because we're off to West Ham to do a show there on the day that Everton visits, right?
That's Easter weekend, isn't it?
Is it Easter weekend?
I think it's Easter
Saturday, weekend, yeah. So she said in a column she writes in a national newspaper, West Ham don't go around sacking their managers. And she gave,
really?
Yes, to all intents and purposes, it was an endorsement of
well, they do go around sacking
Bilic.
their managers. They sacked Sam Allardyce.
They do actually have a history. If you go back as far as old Harry, what's his name?
Didn't they sack Zola as well?
Yeah, but Zola actually didn't have a great time there, did he, as manager?
Didn't they also sack...
No, but hang on. No, Zola... I don't think Zola was under their control. Wasn't Zola under the control of the Icelandic people who were running the club?
Well, that's not... No, but she says West Ham don't sack managers.
Well, West Ham,
She's
generally speaking...
for the club.
If you remember the manager they had during
the
60s era, Harry... what was his name? What's his name? He went on to become England manager.
Harry Redknapp?
No, not Harry Redknapp. No, it was not Harry.
It was Harry. Greenwood.
Harry Greenwood. Ron Greenwood. It was Ron Greenwood. That's right, yeah, Ron Greenwood. Now then, Ron Greenwood.
It's Harry Greenwood.
Ron Greenwood was there for like donkey's years.
Yeah.
And the most famous picture of Ron Greenwood was him bringing the FA Cup home on the tube one day.
I remember that
picture.
That? Oh, yeah. I've seen that picture, yeah.
Covered in a blanket.
Yeah, well, you would cover in a blanket if you were going anywhere near West Ham on the tube, wouldn't you?
Well, that's a bit harsh, isn't it?
It's not at all harsh. I know the area well.
Goldfinger.
we think this joke has now sort of expired a little?
It's nothing to do with me. It's you that started it.
And I
You're
did
the
not
one that
start
started
it.
the whole James Bond rubbish, right?
I
How about
made-
this from Adam, who says Thunderball was the 4th Bond film, Porky?
Dr. No,
Yeah.
Goldfinger. I thought Thunderball
You
was
only
the third.
lived twice, maybe?
Maybe only lived twice, yeah. Might have been the
third
one in the
one.
middle, yeah.
Eddie says you
yeah.
are definitely the Donald Trump of Talk Sport, Porky.
Really?
Yeah.
What, you mean that I'm the king, the president, the top man?
No, you
Thank
are,
you.
in fact, Mr. Petulant and Mr. Self-Absorbed.
Not at all.
How about this one? This is great from Trevor, my favourite
Yes.
text of the day.
Yes.
My son asked me recently what a buffoon was in the car today, listening
Yeah.
to your programme.
Yeah.
He piped up, that Parry man is one, isn't he, Dad?
Well, that is just such a silly
That's
thing.
horrendous.
Such a silly thing to, to read out. That's a small child who is confused about, what's right and what's wrong in life.
I don't think he is.
And
He's spot on, obviously.
and who quite frankly, you shouldn't really confuse the young man's brain.
Okay, now, we were talking earlier about Iron Man and Iron Man suits, right?
Indeed.
And the fact that people should now be able to, as far as you're concerned,
Yes.
propel themselves
Yes.
artificially into the air, like James Bond could in those early movies. We have a man now who can do that, Richard Browning, who's the founder of Gravity and the inventor of the human propulsion suit, known as Daedalus.
Right.
Let's find out what it's all about. Richard, a very good afternoon to you.
Afternoon to you guys too.
Yeah,
very
indeed.
well indeed. Great pictures I've got here of you, sort of taking off from the ground, looking not quite as cute and as slick as Iron Man, but doing more or less the same thing. Tell us about your suit.
Yeah, so give us a bit of time, and we'll hopefully head in the direction of looking even slicker. But
Right.
this started admittedly as an interesting journey about 18 months ago, of really just asking the question, what if? And we've just iterated our way, explored lots of different technologies, and kind of arrived at a point we never really imagined. And now, indeed, we certainly didn't set out with the idea of trying to build an Iron Man suit. It's just quite funny how, I suppose, credit to the Marvel, CGI guys for doing their physics homework and working out what it might actually be like if you did build something like this. Because, a lot of what we've ended up doing, I guess, has parallels, but it wasn't really the starting point.
So, to be honest, Rich, is this simply going to evolve into where you literally strap this device on you like an overcoat? There are, burners and phasers and all that kind of stuff in it. You press a button, and it suddenly shoots thrust downwards, propelling you into the air, and then you have movable fins to direct where you want to go.
Well, there's bits of that. Yes, I would agree with. It's not quite. I think you mentioned phasers. I don't think we've got to the phaser stage yet.
No.
But it does. Essentially, it's a series of micro gas turbines that could create enough thrust to lift you and the equipment off the ground. And the kind of breakthrough was realizing that if you employ the human body as part of the structure and use your brain in terms of the balance, actually it's really manageable, and you save an awful lot of weight and system dependence by relying on the pilot.
Okay.
The picture I'm looking at, to be honest, Richard, looks as though you've just got the thrusters kind of on your arms. Is there sort of plans to put them on your legs or on your feet as well?
So there's two on each arm and two actually tucked round the back, around waist level. So if you draw a straight line out of each of them, then you end up with a sort of tent teepee type arrangement, which is why it's so stable.
Okay.
One of the earlier videos, and you can see this, Red Bull have posted a fantastic film of the kind of journey that we've been through to get to this point. That you can see on that film and on our website and various other social media that's gone out all over the place. You can see some of the earlier iterations and stages included an engine on each leg, which looked brilliant and was flyable. There's a clip of me actually flying it. And there's no wires, and by the way, this isn't April Fool's. It was just our bad timing.
Yeah, but have you actually put this on, Richard? And if you have you gone up in the air and travelled a considerable distance, maybe 2 miles?
So it's me wearing it, and it's me flying it, and it does indeed fly. We haven't gone 2 miles yet. We actually mostly test in this quite small location just to keep out of the way of the public and and keep it all contained. But we're increasingly going to be flying in some interesting locations where we can prove just how far and for what sort of flight times we can fly for. But that should be very possible.
Why doesn't it burn flesh with all that amount of heat coming out of jet engines?
It looks quite impactful. Let's put it that way, and it certainly sounds even more so. But I believe, having had this thing attached to me for most of last year, it's actually less dangerous than a sports bike. The fuel is normal jet fuel, the kind of stuff you put in an aircraft, and it's very low flash. It doesn't explode or burn very vigorously. The heat coming out, the boots I wear to protect my lower legs, they're actually synthetic. So you'd think if it was hot, they'd melt, and they don't. Yeah. That's how it's strange, right? You actually don't have that much heat that radiates from them at all.
Right.
And as I say, apart from a sports bike, I'd say it's probably even less dangerous than my cycle commute through London because the speed that we're going at.
What's the sort of? I know that if we can go and look at this, we can find the answers on YouTube. But what's the furthest you've flown, and how high can you go?
Furthest flown. We haven't done a really long straight line. We sort of zipped around that contained area. But even as soon as next week, we're going to start doing some more interesting longer distance flights and things. In terms of the height, in theory, it's got more than enough power and capability to go thousands of feet, but it would just be a bit kind of foolhardy, and the whole point is to keep safety as the number one priority, and we're only therefore operating a couple of metres off the ground. Actually, to have the impact on people that we quite like having, on people, you want to stay quite close to the audience, and there's no real need at this stage to go super high. But
to get across an urban environment, the whole idea of this is that if you're in central London and you want to get from east to west, then you strap this on, and 5 minutes later you're there, and you're not in a car, and you haven't taken a helicopter. You've actually done this with a strap-on suit.
Yeah, never say never, but honestly, this is not the point we're at the moment. I think it's a little bit difficult to claim this is going to be revolutionising people's shopping trips or commute journeys at the moment. As I say never, but that's not where we're at the moment. This is a bit like an extreme, powerboat or stunt aircraft or whatever. It's not designed as a sort of shopping trolley kind of thing. So, but I think I don't know. As technology advances so quick nowadays, I can see some potential for eventually, especially with some degree of computer control and stuff to keep you out of trouble. Then maybe, but it's not the aim at the moment.
I can see one very practical use for this, Rich, and that is that at the big games, at the big grounds, when you haven't got a ticket, right, you could get some guy to come along, hire your suit off you for the afternoon, and all of a sudden be floating above the main stand watching the game from the best seat in the ground.
That would be genius if it wasn't for the outrageous amount of noise it makes. I think you get noticed.
Is it very noisy? Are you working on the sound for that?
It's I guess in the same way that we're working on the sound, or they're working on the sound for civil airliners. They've tried, but they're still pretty noisy. Right. You're blowing a lot of air out of a small hole, and therefore that does tend to make quite a bit of noise.
Yeah.
But,
you're absolutely right. And Rich, what about the commercial application of this? If this is doing as well as you say it is, and you know more about it than we do, and I've no reason to doubt you, surely even people like Boeing or British Air Corporation or something like that must have come along by now and said, show us what you've got.
Well, there's lots of interest all over the place, and to be fair, there are a few other examples of people doing unusual human propulsion type designs and developments. And there's various potential military applications, search and rescue applications.
Yeah, of course.
You can imagine a display team of these people. You can imagine running, pylon racing, with these kind of things. We're not getting too held up with worrying about where you can take this. For us, it's about bringing this to a whole portfolio of events that we've already been asked to go and fly and appear at. And then we've also had a little list of people start to accumulate who'd actually like us to build their own kind of custom system,
yes.
Which for the right individuals we're happy to meet. Yeah. But also it's about constant R&D and development in the background, and we're kind of committed to continually blowing people's socks off, hopefully not literally, but about where we can take this. And then it's for other people to really come to us and say, actually, they've got some, as I say, search and rescue application or whatever.
Yeah.
And if you were able to retail it currently, if it was sort of ready to be sold on the market, as it were, how much would you be talking about?
Yeah, realistically, I'd say a couple $100,000, maybe 200, 250, that kind of thing.
A couple $100,000, wow.
Yeah, well, it's bound to be. It's so unique. And what about the problem of gaining permission to fly in airspace over a city, Rich? How would that work?
Yeah, and that's, as I say, that we're not planning to do that quite yet, and understandably the authorities would want to have a few conversations. We already engaged with a few of the certainly the UK authorities on this, and they've been really quite open-minded. And I think formally we've been declared as not an aircraft, which is a helpful stage to get to. But it's all admittedly a fairly new arena, so we're very much having active conversations on it. Yes, you'd need to demonstrate that you're not creating any risk to yourself or to other people, and hence the reason why we, don't go for just going to very high altitudes, because there's not really any need at the moment.
Right. Okay. Oh, fascinating stuff.
Yeah, and I wish you the very best of luck, mate. I hope it works out. It's very, very innovative.
If
people would like to see more, there's we seem to be on every channel you can imagine at the moment. Take on Gravity. There's a big Facebook page out there, and on our website, which is www.gravity.co as well. And, there seems to be a lot more interest globally than we ever dare imagine. It seems to have kind of lit up everywhere. So
it's an amazingly new and very, very exciting project.
It is. Richard, thank you very much indeed. Good luck with it. I'm sure we'll talk to you again soon. Celtic are 4-0 up, by the way, now, so it looks as though your prediction may indeed be coming true.
Indeed,
well done. It could be 5-0 before the end of the game, but we'll bring you that news as soon as Celtic clinch the Scottish Championship.
I'm telling you.
And finally, from Hells, Dr. No, from Russia with Love, Goldfinger, Thunderball, You Only Live Twice. That is the order of the first 5 Bond films.
Dr. No,
from Russia with Love, Goldfinger,
and Thunderball. Thank you.
And then You Only Live Twice.
You Only Live Twice.
And there is a great tweet here from somebody that I just wanted to read out to you, which is, I can't find it.
Yeah, you can't find it now. No. You were so gloating about...
it was Daniel Craig, who was only at Anfield. I can't find who said this. Practising for his next Bond movie, which is actually going to be based on Everton.
Oh, yeah.
You only score once.
It's not funny.
This is Talk Sport.
Say live and let die. Live and let die. Live and let die. Live and let die.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. Coming up a little bit later on, of course, Arsenal take on Manchester City. It's a 4 o'clock kick-off. We'll be going ahead to the Emirates to find out what the team news is coming up very soon.
Yeah.
Coochie has tweeted this.
Yes.
How ironic. The link between Everton and James Bond gets even stronger. How about this? 007th.
007.
Yeah, the 7th in the league.
Yeah.
So that's kind of an interesting...
It takes a big brain, doesn't it, to work that one out?
Well, you didn't work it out, so I think we should say to Coochie, well done for thinking of that.
Oh, thanks, Coochie. What I was going to say is that...
I don't know why you're being so dismissive.
No,
You're the one
I'm
that
not being
started
dismissive.
This whole James Bond
I started
malarkey.
this as a serious conversation in which I questioned merely in one phrase, that's all, do you think that the world's biggest...
tweets.
The world's biggest, fictional icon, James Bond, should be attached to a particular football team through the actor who is currently him in real life. Okay, that's all I asked.
Now,
as a consequence of which, I get all this, drivel about, he's only fictional. I know he's only fictional, but to most people...
I wish you were fictional.
No, most people who look at him, they say, oh, it's James Bond. They don't say it's Daniel Craig. They say it's James Bond.
What would you say if I told you that Dame Judi Dench is a well-known Evertonian?
Dame Judi Dench.
It's easy, hard to say that.
It certainly is, yeah.
Dench, yes.
Well, can I tell you this?
Who played the last M, didn't she?
I have followed Everton up and down this country and around Europe for maybe 40 years.
Is that right?
Longer. Yeah. And I've followed them at Goodison, 50 years at Goodison and all that. And
60
perhaps
years, maybe.
longer than that. I have never seen Dame Judi Dench appear at Goodison.
Never seen her with your thespian mates that follow Everton around?
Well, considering that the chairman of Everton Football Club, Mr. Bill Kenwright, is the world's biggest impresario, runs the world's biggest theatre impresario business, you would have thought that if she'd been around, I would have noticed, and I haven't. So I regard that as an urban myth, thank you.
Here's one who says, from John, who says, at least Shirley Bassey was a blue nose. What was that Bond theme she sang? Oh, yeah, Diamonds Are Forever.
That's right. Well, she sang two. She sang Goldfinger, and that was so good. And
was she an Evertonian as well, then?
Well, not to my knowledge. Okay. Again, I've never seen her around. She came from Tiger Bay in Swansea.
In Wales, yeah.
In Wales,
that's
that's
Cardiff.
Is that in Cardiff?
I think so, yeah.
Tiger Bay in
Yeah, I
Cardiff. Are
believe
you
so,
sure?
yeah. I think so.
Yeah, okay. And I didn't know she was an Evertonian. If she had been,
Well, she still is, by the way.
I'm
She
certain I
hasn't-
would have
she's not dead
noticed.
yet.
Listen,
She's
know,
not
it's
dead,
the,
you know.
Eh?
She's not dead.
No, she's not dead.
Well,
no,
if she
no.
was an Evertonian, she would still be one,
Still
wouldn't she?
very much alive.
Let me read you finally on this because we're
Okay.
going to talk to our James Bond expert shortly, right?
Right.
This is from a Liverpool fanzine or
Yes.
website, right?
Yes.
This is what they wrote about your outrageous comments, okay?
Right, yeah.
So, celebrities aren't allowed to express political opinions, and now they can't publicly express sports fandom. I suppose food preferences are next. Or maybe talking about how much they love cats will be a major faux pas. Maybe we should just pass a law saying celebrities can't say anything about anything for risk of alienating people like Mike Parry.
Well, this is not the case at all. The point is that most people in the theatre world are often expressing their political opinions to the boredom of us all.
And you're often slating them for it.
Yeah, I'm not slating them for it.
You're
No,
always
no.
slating celebrities.
No, I say that if they want to
You're
make...
always having to go at
they
your
want
mate Tom Hiddleston.
If they want to express an opinion, that's fine.
Yeah.
Now, I'll tell you what I wanted to talk to you about. Did you know it is the boat race today?
I'd
In fact,
forgotten.
has it happened?
Well,
I'm not sure.
You might have just heard on the news
Yeah,
there that, in fact, I'd completely forgotten that it was on, but it was delayed because they found a World War II bomb.
No, it wasn't.
Somewhere near the river.
No, they found that 2.5 days ago, and they've been dismantling it ever since.
Well, yeah, but that's why it was delayed.
Well, it wasn't delayed. The start wasn't delayed.
Well, the start of the race.
Yeah.
Well, it hasn't happened yet.
What time's it happening?
Well,
it's 4 o'clock.
Well, I think it's going to be later on because it's been delayed by the bomb.
No, it wasn't delayed by the bomb,
It is.
honestly.
Yeah, it is.
Do you know what that bomb was, by the way?
What, was a bomb?
No, it wasn't. Do you
It
know
wasn't
what
a bomb?
No, I know what it was.
Was it a V2?
No. It was...
Was it a Stucker?
No, it's very interesting. It was part of a dummy version of the bouncing bomb that destroyed the German dams.
So it wasn't a German bomb?
No.
It was an English one.
It was
What,
an
were they
English
trying
bomb.
it in the river?
They were.
Really?
They were practicing in the river with these
Blimey.
bombs.
Sounds a bit dangerous.
Yeah, well, it does a
Lucky
bit,
it didn't
yeah.
blow the hell out of Putney Bridge.
Well, it was a dummy bomb. It had no explosives in it, but they were trying to get the
So
spin
they were practicing
factor.
the bounce.
Yeah, that's right. In fact,
Why would they do it in London?
Well, they did it in Scotland.
I was going to say, shouldn't they have done it on Lake Coniston? or
They
somewhere?
did it in locks in Scotland, all that kind of stuff. But in the end, they tried to test it in all sorts of different conditions.
Right.
So they decided to try one on the Thames.
Okay.
And that's what
Well,
they
so
found.
if it's a dummy, then it's not a bomb at all.
No.
So why are they taking so much time dismantling it?
Because
There's nothing in it.
Well, because they didn't know it was a dummy until they spent a lot of time examining it
Yeah,
and
a lot of
finding
people
out that
said
it was
that
a dummy.
about you.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to rise to that sort of utter nonsense. Now, anyway, what I was going to tell you,
Oh, it's too easy.
very interestingly, about the boat race is that this year's is quite unique. And do you know why?
No, what, Oxford and Cambridge aren't in it?
No, I'm not going to rise to that one either. You
Well,
know,
I don't know.
Every year people put out the old, it gets so boring, Oxford and Cambridge.
I couldn't care
always
less
reach
about
the
the boat race. Why are we even wasting anybody's time talking
Because
about
I'm going to tell you something fascinating.
Really?
Oxford and Cambridge always reach the final. A bit of a haddled and raddled old joke.
Yeah.
Now, the reason it is quite unique this year is because there is a chap who this year is racing in the 8 of Oxford,
Yeah.
who has previously...
Yeah.
Go on, guess.
Raced in the 8 for Cambridge?
Absolutely, for the first time ever.
Right, okay.
It's the first
I'm
time it's
still
ever
not
happened.
interested.
No, it's the first time it's ever
I
happened.
still couldn't care less.
I mean, that is incredible.
Why?
Because a man who's become a blue, that's what
bit
us
like,
university types call those who succeed
they're-
in sport.
Yeah.
A blue,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
A guy's-
You didn't go
hey?
to university.
Sorry?
You didn't go to university.
I went for an interview to Brasenose College, Oxford.
That doesn't make you a university type, does it?
If I'd have chosen, I could have gone there. So
You would have been so out of place at Oxford University. You
No,
would have been laughed at, sneered at.
Why?
For
Who
your,
by?
for your-
Who by?
By all the toffs that go there.
Don't be ridiculous.
Because you're not a toff.
Only a third of them are toffs, and the rest
Well-
of them are like
No,
working
that's
class
not
boys
true.
who
Rubbish.
come up through grammar
That is
schools.
absolute rubbish.
We had
It's the other way round.
I had a French teacher at the King's School Chester, and I remember his name, Ian Mellor.
Ian Mellor,
Because a few years later, Liverpool had a forward called Ian Mellor, but it
Okay.
wasn't the same guy.
Wasn't the same one.
But this guy was big and gangly with a mop of some unruly hair.
Right.
And he was the ultimate working class hero.
Uh-huh.
I'm not joking.
Was he the sort of, road to Wigan Pier type?
He came from Oldham, actually,
Oh, right.
quite near Wigan,
Yeah.
but Oldham. So it was, sort of like Lancashire. Big,
Northern intellectual.
I'll tell you, I got down to Oxford, and I'd some of them people there.
Was it Ruskin College where the trade union used to send people?
Yeah, well, Ruskin College was set up for the trade union movement and by the Labour Party,
Right.
and I think John Prescott went there.
Yes.
But anyway, he went to a proper, Oxford college.
Right.
and studied languages and got a very good degree and then became a teacher at my school.
Right.
But he was the ultimate working class hero. So, for instance, he just hated anybody who had ever done anything good in life or had come from a decent home. So, in the staff car park at the King's School Chester, he had the guy who was the art teacher, had all these great paintings in his house and drove around in a Bentley and all this kind of stuff because he was a part-time teacher and full-time art historian,
And tough.
Yeah, we had another guy called Charlie Fox, who, funny enough, was head of the rowing team, but he was also a classics teacher who drove around in a Jaguar. Because
has anyone from your rowing team ever made it into the Oxford or Cambridge
Loads of
rowing
them.
team?
Loads of them,
Really?
literally, yeah. My headmaster in those days, Mr. Monday, spent 3 consecutive...
Mr. Monday?
Yeah, Mr. Monday, Munday. He spent 3 consecutive years on the launch that the headmasters are invited onto to follow the cruise when one of their boys is in the
Did
eight.
they go to the Henley Regatta as well then?
Oh, we won the Henley Regatta a couple of times.
Really?
Oh, the Kingswell Chester had a fantastic rowing school, rowing club, and in fact, we used to win one called the Head of the River Race on the River Dee every year. And in fact, one year, believe it or not, when I was about 9. I won the prize for selling the most programmes on the riverbank for the Head of the River Race.
Why would you get a prize for that?
Well, because, it raised funds for the school.
But you weren't at the school then?
Yeah, I was, yeah. I was
you
at
weren't
school.
at King's School Chester when you were 9?
From the age of 8.
I thought it was a secondary school.
It was a junior and secondary, 8 to 18.
What, so you didn't go to primary school at all?
Yeah, I did. I went to one before I went to the King's School Chester at 8.
The King's School Chester has, a prep school then?
Yeah, junior school.
You told me you went to a prep school.
I did, before I went to the King's School Chester.
So you went to a prep school from what age? 5?
Yeah, about that, yeah. Yeah.
See, none of this makes
sense.
sense.
Yeah. But anyway...
it's 5-0, by the way, up at Celtic now.
5-0, yeah. It looks like they're going to win the Scottish Premier League.
Yeah, another good prediction of yours.
But anyway, so...
why are we talking about this anyway?
I'm not sure where we got to on this one. Why was I talking about...
you were telling me about how exciting the boat race is.
I was telling you about Ian Mellor. Mellor, the French teacher. So, when he turns up on day 1... I'm not joking. He turned up in this van, and it was a Morris Minor van.
Oh, I remember those,
Morris Minor van. A complete and utter wreck. A heap. And he deliberately, swerved in like Jed Clampett, from the Beverly Hillbillies, and just parked it wherever he wanted. Got out, ungainlily dressed, not dressed in a smart suit or anything like that, and then went sort of, prowling the corridors of the King's School Chester, telling everybody the revolution was about to happen. And when we had classes, he would always encourage us to drink a lot of beer at 16 and all this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Because
fight the system.
Yeah, fight the system.
Yeah, when I went to FE college, we had I can't remember his name actually. An economics lecturer was a Marxist. Right?
Oh, Marxist.
So,
I love them. Yeah.
And so I basically decided the only way I could wind him up was to form the Young Conservative Society, which is what I then did.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really conservative at all in those days. Now, all season you've been taking the mickey out of Brendan Rodgers.
Ain't telling you.
Because he's been saying what a great team he's got up there at Celtic.
Me team have been magnificent.
He says that it's been incredible to be compared to the Lisbon Lions.
Hey, Lisbon Lions.
Even though it's not him that's comparing them. Let's talk to Stuart Weir on this momentous occasion where Celtic have once again won the Scottish Premiership very, very early in the season. Stuart, very good afternoon. This must have come as a great shock to you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure what temperature you can serve champagne at, but this has been on ice since about August. So it's probably near absolute zero just now. But no, a fantastic achievement for Celtic this season.
Yeah.
And rounding it off in style today.
The way the players are celebrating now, you'd have thought that it's been in abeyance, very, very closely for about, I would say, 2 weeks. But as you quite rightly say, it's been there since the start of the season. However, Stuart, we all know from our own personal experiences that will not stop the city of Glasgow from celebrating big style until this time tomorrow morning.
Yeah, well, at least 50% of the city of Glasgow might celebrate big time. Another 50% might be drowning their sorrows.
Yeah, well, that's true.
I mean, it's always tricky, isn't it, in the sort of the Monday after the weekend that Celtic win the title, because, I mean, most Celtic fans probably don't make it into work. And so you then have to sit around being miserable all day Monday and wait till Tuesday when they show up to gloat.
Yeah, well, that could still happen this evening in some hostelries around the country.
That's right.
Yes. No, I mean, you've also got, I mean, you guys will appreciate this from your background, that on Friday night, we were sort of sitting waiting on an Aberdeen result in Dundee. If Aberdeen had lost or drawn, then Celtic would have been champions on Friday night.
Yeah.
But thankfully Aberdeen did it in style, so therefore there wasn't any ripping up of pages. But the other thing that today was, even though you have various pullouts and celebration pages all in place, ready for to press the button on them, the fact is that Celtic still had to go about their business this afternoon. And the thing about this Celtic team is that they have gone about their business superbly well domestically this season. I mean, they've only 2 matches against Inverness, Cally Thistle, and one a couple of weeks ago against Rangers. Those are the only 2 blemishes, if you like to speak. The only 2 games that have actually dropped points this term.
Yeah.
And even when they dropped the points, they still didn't lose. So you look at the league table, and Celtic have played 30 games and won 28 of them. It's quite fantastic.
Yeah, well, it is, but you have to weigh up, of course, what sort of league they're in. Now, the other thing is, Stu, that...
Very harsh.
No.
Thanks for rolling that hand grenade.
Yeah, well, no. I mean, look, Brendan Rodgers has been saying so earnestly, staring into a camera and saying quite earnestly...
There he is, look.
Yeah, there he is.
Leading the players towards the adoring fans.
He's been saying that, and next season we must move up to the next level.
Yeah.
Now, what is the next level? Does that mean would it buy 2 more points than they won it this season?
Well, I suppose surviving in the Champions League a little bit longer, right?
Correct. Absolutely spot on, mate. The next step up for Celtic has to be how they're judged in Europe.
Yeah.
And Brendan Rodgers' stock, I would say, has probably moved this season, has moved sideways in how he's perceived south of the border.
Yeah.
Because as you say, what kind of league has he actually won? Well, it's a league where Celtic have a vast amount of money, more than everyone else probably put together.
Yes.
It's a Rangers team that didn't, get no traction whatsoever from the start of the season. An Aberdeen side that actually thought they had improved their player squad on the last couple of seasons when they actually finished as runner-up to Celtic, and there was no real evidence of that. They are the best of the rest. Let me say that first and foremost.
Yep.
And a Hearts side that actually changed manager halfway through the season and just haven't recovered since then. So fantastically well done for Celtic. They're now 2/3 of their way to a domestic treble, but if you want to see how they're going to step up a level, it's getting more than 3 points in the Champions League, and maybe even making it to the last 16. And to be honest, there's much criticism of Arsenal down south about how they, year on year, they keep qualifying for the Champions League. To be honest, that is a major achievement for Celtic right now. And if they get past the qualifying stages, I mean, this season they pocketed somewhere in the region of £33 million just by reaching the Champions League.
Right.
Because they get the entire pot that's set aside for Scotland.
Yes.
And as long as you get that kind of income coming into the club, if you spend it wisely, you will always be, as we see just now, 25 points ahead.
Sure.
With only 24 to play for.
Sure. Without a shadow of a doubt, though, Brendan Rodgers has an eye on getting back into the Premier League and using, and I don't blame him, using Celtic as the passport.
Yeah, and absolutely. But if he sees that, then he has to also understand that there are a great many people who were, hugely sceptical of him because he was at Liverpool. He was in one of the prime jobs. You do not see Brendan Rodgers leaving Celtic to go to, say, Sunderland.
No, you don't.
With all due respect to Sunderland.
Well, Arsenal he's been linked with Arsenal in one of the newspapers south of the border today.
He has to wait in Arsene Wenger either quitting or being kidnapped for that to happen.
Well, exactly right. And that would be funny, though, wouldn't it?
But again, how high is his stock? Because if you want to be judged on a level playing field, that level playing field is that Celtic took 3 points in the Champions League, and the 2 teams that qualified above them, Barcelona, are still in the competition. Manchester City were knocked out, and Borussia Mönchengladbach, who qualified for the Europa League, were also knocked out at the last 16 stage. So really, if you like, it wasn't the best of groups, and Celtic underachieved and underperformed in that group. And again, going on to another season, Celtic will strengthen. They'll do well to keep some of their players because, again, even the amount of money that Celtic have just now, the finances that are such in England the kind of money that they would, like Chelsea or Arsenal or Liverpool or whoever it is, would find down the back of the couch, would probably buy, Dembele, would probably buy Sinclair, would probably buy Armstrong and a winner. So that's the kind of problems that Celtic face as well.
Sure, exactly right. Well, it won't be very much fun watching the rest of the season either, will it?
Right,
But Stuart,
thanks,
thank you
Barry.
very much indeed. What did you say?
Sorry, Stuart.
Called him Barry.
Yeah, Barry was the
Sorry,
chap
Barry.
who's doing
Thanks, Barry.
Thanks, mate. Yeah.
Barry Weir. There you go. This is Talk Sport.
From Russia with love, I fly to you.
That was Matt Monro, wasn't it?
Was it? If you
Yeah,
say so.
From Russia with Love. Matt
Russia
Monro.
with Love's not one of the ones I know terribly well, to be honest. I've seen it, but I haven't seen it like loads and loads of times.
Isn't that the one that the evil woman with the knives in her feet, in her shoes, was in?
I think she might be in
Klopp
that.
was her name was Klopp, wasn't
I
it?
think it was Klopp.
Yeah, Klopp. So when I was calling Kloppy yesterday, that's Jurgen Klopp.
Jurgen
People
Klopp,
getting
yeah.
upset and saying
I don't think
been
he's related
over-familiar.
to her,
No,
is he?
I'm sure he's not.
I think she was in a couple of films though, because the one with the daggers coming out of the end of her shoes.
Yes.
I've got a feeling that was something other than From Russia with Love. I could be wrong. I'm not a Bond expert.
Yeah, you
as
could
know.
be. Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure that's where she arose.
Could be. Now, how about this from Adrian, who says, "Hi guys, sorry to tell Mr. Parry, but the new M in the Bond films, Ralph Fiennes, is also a Liverpool fan."
I've no knowledge of that whatsoever. He doesn't look like a football fan to me at all.
Why did you say that?
Well, he's a posh boy.
Well,
You know,
why can't people who you regard as posh be football fans?
If he wasn't an actor, he'd be a career civil servant, that guy.
Well, I don't think you can say that.
That Matt Monro, by the way.
I have no idea.
You know, he was the sort of the British version of kind of...
He was a crooner, wasn't he?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. He was,
Well, sort of Frank Sinatra style.
Yeah,
wasn't
that's right. British version, a very cheap sort of, untalented British version.
Well, I wouldn't say he was
Frank
untalented.
Yeah, he was.
A lot of people liked his singing voice. He was quite schmaltzy.
The other one he sang was "Come fly with me,
Oh, that was a
come
Sinatra
fly,
song.
let's fly away."
Well, that was a Sinatra song.
Yeah, well,
He probably sang every Sinatra song.
yeah, he probably did.
How about this one from David? Porky could have hung out at Oxford with his working class mate John Cleese.
Yeah, John Cleese, that's right. Yeah, very working class indeed.
And then this one from Stefan, who says, since Everton last won at Anfield, Blackpool have risen from the 4th tier to the Premier League, won at Anfield and fallen back down again.
Yeah, they probably have. I totally agree. It's not something one
It's not
wishes
very
to...
happy days up there at Blackpool.
Well,
is
funny
it?
enough, talked to Ian Rush earlier in the show, as we did, and how open and engaging Rushy was. Great
Yes.
to hear from him. Thank you very much
Absolutely,
indeed.
yes.
Since we come from the same town, Chester, we have an awful lot in common, of course.
Do you?
Except
what would you say you had in common with Ian Rush?
Who, Ian Rush and
Apart
I?
from coming from Chester.
Well, we emerged from a small Roman medieval town and conquered the world.
Yeah.
By
the way, it's Rosa Klebb. It's not Klopp.
No, it's not. Who is it?
It's Rosa Klebb.
Rosa Klebb. I thought it was Rosa Klopp.
Well, it sounds like it, doesn't
it does, yeah.
Yeah.
But
you probably get Klopp's PR people on you now.
But the story I love about Rushy, because I read his book,
Yeah.
with great interest, and it's fascinating about.
From Rushy with Love, was it called?
No, it wasn't actually. No, but he went off to Italy with Juventus.
Yeah,
Didn't
Juventus,
like
yeah.
it. Great.
Yeah, he didn't like it, yeah.
No, he didn't like it. His great quote was, I didn't really like it. It was like being in a foreign country and all that kind of stuff. But his favourite...
He's wonderfully kind of just normal, isn't he?
Yes.
I mean, he's
Oh,
one
yes.
of those guys you would just say there's nothing about him which is in any way fake. He's just a great guy.
Ian Rush is completely untouched by the fact that he's one of the greatest footballers
What a
that people
fantastic
of my
footballer he was.
age have
Yeah.
ever seen live. I mean, and he was so good.
Hmm.
When he was at Chester, somebody spotted him. Somebody was scouting for Liverpool, and they just said, "This is the greatest we've ever seen." I remember him. I think his debut for Liverpool was. I think it was as a substitute in a European game or something at night, and he came on. The next day, all the newspaper headlines were, "Who is this boy?" and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
But the great part of his work, which I love most, and this is very typical of how humble a guy Ian Rush was. He never ever had a sense of his greatness all the way through his career. I didn't think, but
No, and I mean even now he very much gives off that impression, doesn't he?
I met him at Wembley once before a game, and it was probably an Everton-Liverpool game. There's been a few of those over the years with semi-finals and that kind of stuff. And I was with my sister, because both my sisters are Everton fans, and if I can take one of them along to a big game there, it's great, for sort of, family sort of history and all
Yes.
that kind of stuff. Anyway, we were sitting at one table, and Ian Rush was at another table with important people about 2 tables away.
Right.
And I thought it would be great if we could get a picture with Ian Rush, even though obviously I'm a lifelong Evertonian, so is my sister. So my mum could see it later because she was very aware of,
Yes.
football people in Liverpool because she was brought up there. Well, she was brought up in Birkenhead, actually.
Right.
And so I went over to the table, and then some guy got up and said, not now, please, And I said, no, please. I
Well, I
said,
can't blame him for that. I mean, because normally when you approach people in the Wembley club,
Yeah.
it's always a bit tricky, isn't
well,
it?
it's fair enough, but we'd done a bit of work together in the 80s when Everton were terrifically good and all that kind of stuff. We'd done a bit, and since we started TalkSport, I remember doing a couple of shows in Liverpool on days of Everton-Liverpool games with Howard Kendall on one side of the debate and Ian Rush on the other, and we all got on terribly well together.
Right.
Had a few sherbets afterwards and all that kind of stuff, So he recognised me without a problem, and he said to this guy, no, it's all right. And this guy said, no, you don't want to be bothered. And Rush said, no, it's all right. So I said, how are you? Very good. I said, look, would you mind? This is my sister doesn't very often come to Wembley. No, of course. We still got that picture on everybody's wall at home. He's a terrifically nice guy. But the paragraph I loved from the book was, he'd settled in Chester and he was thinking about the rest of his life, and I think he was going to settle down and want to get married and all that. And
this is before he moved to Liverpool, you mean?
This was before he moved to Liverpool. And Alan Oakes, I think, was the manager. And Alan Oakes was a famous wing half for Manchester City when they won the league title in the late 60s, 69, I think it was. No, 69 they won the Cups. Must have been 68, the year that Manchester United won the European Cup. And Alan Oakes had told him about the interest from a number of clubs, but in particular Liverpool, Bob Paisley and all that. And he really didn't want to go because he was, as I say, he was a very home-loving boy.
Yeah.
You didn't know if that would be an upheaval.
He wasn't interested in the bright lights.
An upheaval in his life that he couldn't handle. So when he met Bob Paisley, the way it goes was that he was earning about £35 a week at Chester, and he told Mr. Paisley that, couldn't possibly move for anything less than about £120, Mr. Paisley, which is 4 times his salary. And Bob Paisley had written out the contract, which was £350 a week, which is 10 times his salary.
Yes.
So imagine if you suddenly sat down with somebody tomorrow who offered you 10 times your salary, you'd be probably
I was
likely
going
to
to
take
say,
it.
never mind 10 times, from £350 a week, some people are now getting £350,000 a week.
Oh, of course they are,
Which is incredible, really, when
It
you
is.
think of that particular force of inflation.
Well, again, when you take people of the talent of Dalglish and Ian Rush and Gary Lineker and Alan Ball and people like that, imagine what they'd be earning these days, instead of the humble sort of wages that people got in those days.
Exactly. Richard says this, by the way. Sinatra was a fan of our cheap Matt Monro. It was cheap in inverted commas.
Yeah.
Who also happened to sing the theme to the Italian Job.
Oh, did he? I didn't know that.
There you go.
Yeah. Didn't he sing the other one about a balloon? Something about a balloon. What was the air balloon song?
The air balloon song?
Yeah, like a balloon in the sky.
What?
I'll fly and fly like a balloon in the sky.
Like a balloon in the sky?
Yeah. And I'll fly and fly
Never heard of it.
like a balloon in the
balloon.
sky. Or something like that.
No, I don't know that one.
Sometimes I wish someone could. Nobody does it quite the way you do.
I think we should dispense now with the Bond things, okay? Because you're trying to make a mockery of it, whereas in fact there are millions.
We're just about to talk to the guy that does the James Bond podcast.
Okay, that's great.
Why do you want me to dispense with it?
Because you play it out of every break, and there are
It's
millions.
nothing to do with me.
There are millions of people out there
nothing to do with
who
me.
understand exactly the point I was making and are aware of the fact there's an issue here.
Well, there is no issue. There is nobody who thinks that there is
Well,
an
that's only
issue.
your opinion. Your opinion doesn't really count for that much.
My
around here.
opinion counts for about as much as your opinion does, which I agree may not be very much, but it's at least equal to yours. John says this: MG, ask Porky which famous actor played the villain in From Russia with Love.
Oh, I'll tell you. It
Go
was Robert Shaw.
Correct.
Who was in Jaws, of course.
He was the man who said we're going to need a bigger boat.
Yeah, an old Rosa Klepp or Klobb or whatever her name. What was her name? Rosa Klepp.
Rosa Klebb.
Klebb, right. She in one of the opening scenes. She puts on a knuckle duster, a really hard one, and she walks up to Robert Shaw, who then opens his shirt, and she gives him just an amazing punch in the ribs.
Right, she's not a very pleasant woman, really.
It wasn't very pleasant. She had poison knives in her shoes and knuckle dusters and all that.
Yeah.
Not the sort of bird you'd take down to the pizza house on a
That's not the
Saturday
sort of word
night.
you should use.
No, I
really.
know.
It's a family show.
I know, but that was in the 1960s.
I
don't
see.
worry.
Okay.
And
You're just channeling James.
exactly, yeah.
James Bond.
And of course, Robert Shaw didn't even flinch. He was the toughest man in the world because he was a Russian agent for
That's right.
Spurs.
With an Irish accent. Jackson.
Or smash.
Now, do you mind if I introduce Tom Sears
Let's
now,
do
who
that.
is, of course, the James Bond podcaster. Tom, a very good afternoon and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. How are you doing?
Yeah, very
Very well.
indeed.
Hi, Tom. Thanks for
now,
joining
we've not
us.
spoken to you for a
Let's
while.
get a bit of common sense into the show.
Porky has sort of rattled everybody's cage by, I suppose you've maybe seen the story by now, it seems to be travelling up and down the internet with quite some speed. He's upset that James Bond has been outed as a Liverpool fan, but of course, really everybody knows it's only Daniel Craig that's a Liverpool fan, not actually James Bond. Is there any reference at all to football in any of the James Bond books?
Do you know what? Not to my knowledge. Usually it's one of those things that sometimes you have to go back and comb through the books for those little details, but there's nothing that springs to mind about, specific football teams or anything like that in any of the books.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I know.
OK, now, what do you think of a situation in which, obviously, Daniel Craig is recognised worldwide as James Bond, suddenly attaching, his preferences and even his allegiance to an organisation like Liverpool Football Club, which may be misinterpreted and misconstrued by younger people who are going to grow up to be great James Bond fans? I think it's dangerous.
Well, I'll be totally honest with you, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not a huge football guy myself, but
Right.
I do have a very, very solid opinion on this. Now, basically, as far as I see it, if Daniel Craig supports Liverpool, then that, as you're kind of implying yourself, that means James Bond supports Liverpool in some way. So therefore, I think the entire nation should support Liverpool based on that alone.
Well, you see, that's my fear is that people will be influenced to do it.
That's
now, I know
possibly
you're
the worst thing you could have said.
Yeah, I know
have to
you're
say.
trying to sort of wind me up here, Tom, for want of a better word. But can I say to you that people often do? You've got to remember that lots of people support teams these days because of some instant that happened in their childhood when they saw, a brief flickering black and white instant on the television. And any kid now says, oh, there's James Bond, oh, he's at Anfield, oh, he supports Liverpool, oh, I'm going to support Liverpool. I think it's a dangerous precedent. I also think it means that there's a degree of, what's the word I'm saying, favouritism floating around.
From whom?
Well, Daniel Craig has got to, obviously.
Well, why would Daniel Craig not support a football team as an individual? And the fact that he has become James Bond since he's been a Liverpool fan should not in any way have an effect on him supporting Liverpool while he's playing James Bond. And in any event, I think I'm right in saying he has not absolutely and utterly guaranteed that he will do the next James Bond film, Tom, has he?
Well, no, he's not come out and officially said it, but he's gonna come back for absolutely sure. If you look at his filming schedule, he's busy for the rest of this year, and then right at the end of the year and next year, nothing's booked. So in my book, he's definitely coming back.
I mean, you immerse your life in James Bond, Tom. So let me put this to you: if Liverpool Football Club are parading James Bond in their director's box, they become a commercially more attractive proposition to people who want to invest hundreds of £1 million in football around the world.
Well, what about Amanda Holden?
What about Amanda Holden?
Well, she's always in the Everton director's box.
Yes, of course she is. But, I mean, Amanda Holden is on British TV.
Yeah.
She's not a worldwide
She's a judge
superstar.
in Britain's Got Talent.
Yeah, but she's not recognised as one of the most famous people in the world. Anyway, Tom knows more about this than we do. What is the influence that these guys have when they're out of role, Tom? Where did you see it happen with people like Sean Connery and Roger Moore?
Well, look at this. At the end of the day, of course, I'm not a football guy, but I'm going to start taking an interest in Liverpool now based on this news this week.
Well, exactly.
So there's the power of it for you. But I would argue that it's actually quite appropriate because Everton, I don't know if you know this, they're kind of known to be very much like Bond villains themselves.
They're not actually, but I will skip over that one.
I see what you're doing there. I believe Sean Connery was a Hibs fan, actually.
I'm
pretty sure he was a Hibs fan.
Well, no, he's a fan of Bahamas United or something. That's where he lives, isn't it?
Now that he lives abroad, but I believe because he's from Edinburgh, he was a milkman, wasn't he, in Edinburgh? And I think he was a Hibs fan.
But that is also interesting, actually, what Mike's just raised there, Tom, because, of course, didn't Sean Connery get involved in the, Scotland, separation, one nation, all that kind of thing?
Well, he's a supporter of the SNP.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah. So when a guy who has played the most famous role in films in the world suddenly starts, talking politically, that has an effect, doesn't it?
I suppose it does. He was very much behind, the anti-Brexit stuff. He very much wanted to stay in Europe and stuff. So yeah, he does have a voice for sure. Absolutely.
He's not doing very well with it, though, is he? But listen, thank you very much indeed, Tom.
Thanks,
it's not
Tom.
a great line, so we'll let you go there. If he is a guy who was proposing independence for Scotland and staying in the European Union, and he's 0 for 2, then, isn't he, on that?
He's what? 0-2?
He's 0 for 2. as we say in American parlance, when somebody is in the
Yes,
sports
I see what you mean,
business,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
If you've
for 2.
If you've played 2, lost 2, you're 0 for 2.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's
You know
more
what I
of a
mean?
boxing
No, it's
analogy,
used in every American sport.
Is it?
Used
Okay,
in
that's
baseball, used for American football.
By the way, I forgot to tell you when we were discussing the boat race.
Oh, yeah.
Very interestingly.
Is it taken place yet, by the way?
There's 2. There's 2.
2 boat races?
What takes place first is the women's boat
Oh,
race.
right. Are you going to give us a tip for each?
No, I'm not. But can I tell you this? Did you know that there is a US Air Force fighter pilot rowing in the boat race today?
I didn't know that either, no.
Yeah,
I still don't care.
Well, it's a woman.
Oh.
She's a US Air Force fighter pilot.
At
female.
Oxford?
No, she's not at Oxford, no. I think she's
Is she at Cambridge, then?
Well,
she must be at one of them, surely.
Well,
she can't just be co-opted, can she? Maybe she's going to Chester School for Boys.
No, don't be ridiculous. No. I mean, yes, she will be. She'll be a postgraduate student
she'll be
at one or the other.
them.
Yeah, that's right, she is.
Of course,
but
she's going to be one of them.
She could also get into an F-111 right tomorrow, roar off into the skies.
You don't need any oars for that, do you?
And and rub out a few insurgents. She has the ability to do it.
A few insurgents.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't mess with a woman like that if you were in the boat in front of her. And she told you to up your stroke, you know what I mean? Because the number of... No, you idiot. That's the number of times you pull your blade during the course of a minute.
Yeah,
right?
but you can't tell one person to do that when there's 4 of them in the boat.
Well, you can if you've got enough influence.
No, because
and you
they
say
all have
to the
make...
cocks,
No, it has to be
it up.
done at the same level.
Eh?
It all has to be done at the same level.
I know that.
Otherwise, you start going around in circles.
Yeah, but you've heard in any team you've got to have leaders, and leaders sometimes dictate the course
so you don't
of play.
seem to know which team she's on, though.
Well...
Is she in the women's team or the men's team?
Oh, she's in the men's team, obviously.
Well, why is there a women's race if there's women in the men's race?
There aren't any women in the men's race, you idiot. Who said that?
You just said she's in the men's team.
I said she's in the women's team.
Okay.
The women's team. You listen.
All right.
And she's a fully qualified fighter pilot in the US Air Force, right?
Okay.
And
Cool.
just imagine that, woman that she's in a boat in an 8 on the river pulling an oar, and the next minute she could be hitting that button and letting off a sidewinder 36,000 feet up, which would change the course of the world.
Yeah, right.
We've seen the Glasgow Rangers and their hips and hearts as well. A couple of teams from Dundee and the Jags and Motherwell. We've seen the Airdrie and St Johnson and the Dons, but the Celts go marching on.
Did you ask for this?
No.
Just looking at the margin of points that Celtic have won the last sort of 5 or 6 trophies.
It's all about 18 or 19, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's all about that. I mean, there was one where it was like 29. I mean, in the last 3 or 4 years. Absolutely extraordinary, isn't it? But,
that's a great dilemma in
congratulations
Scotland.
to them, I have to say.
Oh, look, I want to say massive congratulations. If everybody thinks that I'm underplaying their achievement, I'm not. But it's such a difficult...
I'm telling you.
Yeah, I'm telling you. It's such a difficult situation to get a grip of because the extent of how good a team is in its league is the relativity between the team that wins and the rest.
Sure.
And it's very, very difficult to get a gauge on that.
Do you know what
Scotland.
I've just thought of, which is a brilliant analogy,
go on.
I think, is Celtic winning the league up in Scotland is a little bit like England winning their qualifying group for the World Cup.
I think it's probably even easier, if you see what I mean.
Nothing's easier than England winning their qualifying group.
I agree that it's very easy indeed, but at least they've got to consider, the factors of overseas and, foreign nations.
But I suppose what I mean
this all happens in Scotland, which they know pretty well.
But what I mean is that what they do is they trounce all opposition. They stamp it into the ground. They very rarely lose.
Yes.
However, as soon as they go into a proper tournament like the Champions League, they get horsed.
Well, I mean, obviously, we spoke to the experts on our show this afternoon, and it was always going to be that, the only way they can look as though they're becoming a better team in relation to other teams in other leagues is to go further in the Champions League. And they weren't in a terribly strong group last time. But look, he's done he's actually... he's overachieved, I suppose, in the sense that they were always expected to win by a huge margin, but they've won by a bigger margin than even the fans thought they would.
Celtic fans will tell you that he's also improved the way that they play, which I suppose is important as
yes,
well. But the proof of the pudding will be, as Stuart Weir said, or Barry, as you like to call him.
Barry,
what they do and how they get on in the Champions League, which we'll see. Now, I've just seen Jason Cundy outside. He's coming up after us at 4 o'clock. We'll be talking to him in a little while. I've got some very good brief tweets to read out to you.
Yeah.
This one from Ian, and a couple of other people have pointed pointed it out. There are no F-111s anymore, Porky,
Right, no.
you plank.
No, you're right. F-111s were the ones that bombed me in Libya a few years back.
So the female rower who happens to be the pilot of an F-111 must be pretty old, they're saying, because potentially that was retired from service 20 years ago.
I can believe that. I think they're kind of F-116s and all sorts of things now,
F-16s, no?
F-16s, are they?
F-17s, probably?
F-17s, probably.
Andrew from Aberdeen says, I'm a massive Bond fan. Did you know that Timothy Dalton is a Manchester City fan and is sometimes seen at the Etihad?
Well, Timothy Dalton, I thought, was the worst Bond, not because he was necessarily a poor actor or anything like that, but because his attitude towards it was that it was all a bit silly and he wasn't sure why he was doing this. I mean, he said afterwards... He
tried to play it quite serious, though, didn't he?
He tried to play it quite serious. He did 3 films, I think.
Living Daylights is the one I remember.
Living Daylights, yeah.
Did he do more than one? I thought he only did 1.
No, he did 3, I think. He certainly did 2, and somebody will correct me, knows more about it, but he might have done 3. But he gave an interview a couple of years later saying that he could never get to grips with the Bond. He thought it was all very silly, that, he always wanted to be a serious actor and all that kind of stuff. And you always got the feeling that he was sort of looking at it down his nose when he was playing the part. Do you remember his opening scene? Because I do. He was on the Rock of Gibraltar.
Yes, I do remember that. Gibraltar's in the news at the moment.
Gibraltar is in the news at the moment. That's right. And there was a spy in the camp in this exercise they were doing, special services and all that.
Right.
And somebody got shot on their own side.
Okay.
And then he had to try and find who the guy was. He ended up jumping off the Rock of Gibraltar
and driving a Land Rover at high speed.
Driving a Land Rover at high speed and all that. And in the end, literally jumping off the Rock of Gibraltar and landed on a boat upon which a very attractive lady was sunbathing.
Oh, yeah.
And, the old James Bond would have done it with a twinkle in his eye and pulled down the veil and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Whereas he very, very seriously, said in his phone or something, I'll report back to base in an hour, and then looked at the lady and said, make that 2. But he didn't say it with a twinkle in his eye or any humour or anything. It was dead straight.
Well, that was the problem. I think he didn't have any humour. He didn't bring any humour to it at all. Whereas Daniel Craig, I think, actually, has, after the first showing that we didn't particularly like.
Yes.
Because he was a bit too serious and a bit too kind of introspective in A Quantum of Solace. I think it was the first one, wasn't it?
Sure.
I mean, I think he's become quite a good Bond.
The first one, no, that wasn't. The first one he did was Casino Royale, wasn't it?
Was it Casino Royale?
Yes, it was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was A Quantum of Solace.
No, it wasn't. It was Casino Royale because that was the one in which he won the Aston Martin in a card game, didn't he?
Yes, that's right.
And
what a crash that was.
It was a terrible crash. And then, unfortunately, the poor lady who he was romancing, who was married to a master international criminal, ended up sort of strung up in her own...
yeah, that wasn't good.
In her own sort of hammock in the garden. It wasn't good.
No, it wasn't good at all. Now, here's one from Stuart from Ayr, who says that Sean Connery had a trial for Manchester United.
I've heard that in years past, but I've also heard that he was actually a milkman in Glasgow.
Well, he was definitely a milkman in Edinburgh. No, he was definitely a milkman in Edinburgh.
Okay, yeah.
Now, here's a good one from Jason, who's done you up as Nick Nack.
Oh, yes.
From The Man with the Golden Gun.
Oh, yeah, I see. Yeah, that's very good.
He says, let us see what Nick Nack has for us. Pinot Grigio, monsieur.
Yes, I didn't like the opening to that film, The Man with the Golden Gun. I thought it was the most silly one, because it was Christopher Lee, wasn't it?
I thought you wanted to put all this James Bond stuff to bed.
Was it Christopher Lee or was it the other guy?
It was Christopher Lee.
I always confused Christopher Lee with
Scaramanga.
the other guy. Yes, Scaramanga. And it was stupid. An assassin came along to kill him because this is the game he used to play, and then Scaramanga ended up killing the assassin because that was the great battle of wills and all that kind of stuff. But it was all to do with mirrors and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, enough James Bond. Now, do you realise that we are entering the week of the Grand National?
Let me just read you this from Peter in Plymouth.
Okay.
Porky, the song of Matt Monro singing to the Balloon advert was Somewhere.
What, Somewhere Over the Rainbow?
No, can't be.
No.
Did he sing the Nimbles? Was it Nimble?
That's right. Come fly with me.
No, it wasn't Come
Fly. Let's fly away.
No, that wasn't the Nimble song. The Nimble song was Flying Away in a Beautiful Balloon. That
it wasn't.
Yeah, it was.
It was Come Fly With Me.
No, it wasn't. No, incorrect.
First of all, that song, I know, used to advertise
Do you want to fly in a beautiful balloon? It's that one.
Oh, but that wasn't Matt Monro.
Well, that's what this guy's saying.
Fly
well, you don't have to repeat it.
Beautiful balloon.
Yeah, that was the Nimble advert, wasn't it? Or She Flies Like a Bird in the Sky.
She flies
that one.
Like
Why are you singing them all?
Because I know them all.
Well, you don't know them, any of them.
And the
you
other
don't know
one,
who any of the people are that singing them.
The other one was done by the New Seekers.
Please don't sing another one.
I want to teach the world
I want to throw you
sing.
out of the studio.
Now, listen, I said to you, did you know it's Grand National Week? Sorry, what are you laughing at?
Well, it's quite an apt title. I want to teach the world to sing.
I want to teach the world to sing, yeah. So you could change that to, I want to teach
Mike Parry
to sing. Yeah, that's right.
Exactly right. Anyway, what were you going to say about the Grand National?
Well, it's the week of the Grand National.
Is it?
Because the week starts
come round fast,
on Sunday, so it's next Saturday.
Is it next Saturday?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so a lot of people have asked us if we're going to do a show from up there. Unfortunately, the answer is no.
We can't, I'm afraid.
It can't be done.
It can't be done because there's too much else to do, I'm afraid.
Well, there's also too much, but also there's a bit of complication with the trains.
Well, the trains are all on strike.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the men who drive the trains and the unions they're in, the union people there have apparently called strike.
Perhaps Gary Lineker sorted it out.
Well, whatever. That's rather cruel. But anyway, what I was going to say is, not only is it the week of the Grand National, it is the week of the most famous ever Grand National in modern times.
Why is that?
Well, which one would that be?
Are you thinking of the one that was either full started or the one that was cancelled altogether?
No, I'm thinking of one that actually finished, but what happened was there was a huge pile-up at the 23rd fence, and Foynehaven, the 100-to-1 outsider, ran round all the horses which had...
was that not last year?
No, man, this was 1967.
Oh, was it?
So you were 7 years of age.
Oh, right. Well, I don't think I remember betting on that one.
Yeah, well, what happened was all the horses at the 23rd fence...
No, but wasn't there one recently where a 100-to-1 horse won it? I'm sure there was.
Yeah, I think there was.
I think you had it.
I was on it. Yeah, I was on it. You're absolutely right. And it wore blue silks.
Wasn't the year we went up? Not maybe last year, but the year when we were up in Manchester. Was it the year we were up in Manchester? Remember we watched it in the bookies.
No, I think it was the year before that.
Near the dance house.
I think it was the year before that. Because I had tremendous success. I won about £880 altogether, including the one at 100-to-1, which I had...
you had each way or something?
I had £10 each. I must have won a lot more than that then. It was 100-to-1. I'm not sure.
But
anyway,
but
anyway, the point is that that it's the 50th anniversary of that race. Okay. Now, do you know what? Do you know what? I brought this up.
I've no idea
because I've been looking at some TV pictures of that race in 1967.
Right.
Now, my brilliant method of backing horses in the Grand National is that I back every horse that runs in blue silks.
Yes.
To one extent or another.
But it doesn't always work out, does it?
Well, maybe it does and maybe it doesn't. But £10 each way on even 14 horses is okay. And
£10 each way on 14 horses?
It was 1 year, it was 14 horses who ran.
That's a lot of money. It's 280 quid.
It is, absolutely
well, people can't afford that kind of money.
No, but you get returns, don't you, from long odds horses that come in the first 5.
You can't encourage people to put nearly 300 quid on the Grand National.
I'm not encouraging anybody to do anything.
Please bet in moderation.
What I'm saying to you is, my system would have been utterly hopeless in 1967 in that pile-up.
Why?
Because it was black and white TV. So
don't you think you could have read somewhere that it was not? I'm not saying that you would have seen the colour.
Exactly.
But you would have read what the colour was.
Well, you'd have had all the printouts in the newspaper, but even in those days, the newspapers didn't have colour.
No, but they would have described...
That's exactly what I'm saying to you.
Surely they would have described the colour.
They would have described the colour, but what I'm saying is, what would be the point of watching the race? At least I know when I watch it these days that if there's usually 40 runners, so if, say, 12 of them are running with blue silks, I can see exactly, he got over the fence, he fell down, he's out in front, he's running third.
Yeah.
How would you do that on black and white TV?
Well, you couldn't.
And when you're looking at the spread in a black and white newspaper, I mean, talk about difficulty to overcome. Terribly difficult.
Well, same with the problem with snooker, wasn't it, as I was saying?
Yeah, it was.
For those of you watching in black and white, the yellow's the ball behind the brown.
That's right.
Let's talk to Paul Dickoff, though, ahead of the game, see what he thinks about this big game coming up. Paul, a very good afternoon to you.
How are we, guys?
Hi, Paul.
Very well indeed. Now, first of all, I guess we should say congratulations, as you're a Celtic fan, I understand. So, they've done it again. How good is Brendan Rodgers, and what chance has he got of being good next season in the Champions League?
Yeah, look, it's going to be difficult for them. I mean, because the standard, as we all know, up there isn't the best. And to win it already this season tells a story about what they're up against. But to be fair to Brendan and Celtic, you can only beat who's in front of you. And they've done that convincingly all season.
I mean, I've got a text here from somebody called Dave who says, you two fat oafs need to get your facts right. It's not a very pleasant way to start a text.
Nice, isn't it?
Says Celtic played your champions in the Champions League and both games were drawn. Right now, Celtic would be easily in the top 4 in the Premier League. I'm not sure about that.
No, I don't think so. I think if they were in the Premier League, they would be in that group behind the top 6 or 7 at the minute. And I'll probably get battered for saying that up all my mates back home.
So don't go to Glasgow tonight.
Yeah. Now, Paul, without causing a storm of protest from north of the border, shouldn't somebody either in government or in football or something do something to make sure that Rangers become a credible and equal force to Celtic sooner rather than later? Otherwise, the credibility of the Scottish Premier League is going to ebb away altogether, and these title wins are going to become meaningless.
Yeah, they are. And, being a Celtic fan, it might be surprising me to say it, but Scottish football needs a strong Rangers
of course
team to go and compete against them. And not just because of that, to get back into European football as well. Because Rangers, it's a huge club with a lot of history. I think, personally, it's a crying shame it's happened behind the scenes over the last few years. And this season always going to be difficult for them coming straight back in. There was no way they were going to compete with Celtic straight away. I just hope that the building process they're going through, they can be up there competing again very soon.
Yeah. Right. I mean, sorry, Mike, I know the fans would, the Celtic fans would say, why should we give any, due advantage to Rangers? They got themselves into the mess they're in. But the fans didn't. And, most of the people who follow the club. And like what you've just said, Paul, I'm pretty certain that Celtic fans will want to see one of those fantastic, even Stevens Old Firm games where they're on edge for 3 or 4 days before the game because they know it'll be decided by one goal.
Well, the next one they might be because it was a draw the last one, wasn't it? 1-1.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more though, Mike, because even the staunchest Celtic fans, it's been too easy for them, and they want to see competition from Rangers. Yes, they're enjoying it, they're winning the league and beating Rangers along the way.
Yeah.
But I think if they're all being honest, they would like to see it a little bit closer.
No, totally.
Now let's talk about the top four, because the top four needs a strong Arsenal, doesn't it? And Arsenal are not very strong at the moment.
No, they're not, and it's a massive game this afternoon. If you look from Manchester City's point of view, Arsenal and then Chelsea in the space of 4 days. And the top four this year, I felt even at the start of the season, guys, it was going to be the hardest one to break into, because Leicester gave everybody a bit of a kick up the backside last year.
Yes.
Man City, Chelsea, Man United, Tottenham and Liverpool, they've all went and strengthened because they know how important it is to get into that top four. And, you've got to say, looking at it at the minute, Arsenal are struggling a little bit.
Well, they're more than struggling a little bit, because, this will be the first year for many a year that they didn't make it into the top four if things carry on the way they are, because at the moment, they're not looking anywhere like getting back in, are they?
No, they're not. And I worry for them a little bit this afternoon, Mike, because that's a must-win game for Arsenal today. For them to have any chance of getting into that top four, I feel they have to beat Man City today, and that's going after them. And Man City, with the form that Leroy Sané, Sterling and Sergio Aguero, Kevin De Bruyne, David Silva, the form they're all in at the minute, if Arsenal go for it, they're going to leave spaces in behind, and City could absolutely murder them.
Right. Yeah, but at the same time, we need a competitive Premier League down here as well. So if City get those points this afternoon, City's next opponents are Chelsea. It could all start getting quite interesting, couldn't it?
Yeah, it could. Look, Chelsea have been absolutely fantastic this year. But if City win today, it's still 9 points, but then if they can manage to go to Stamford Bridge, get back-to-back wins, all of a sudden it's down to 6 points and Chelsea are looking over their shoulder again, And I think for everybody, that Crystal Palace win yesterday has gave everybody a little bit of a glimmer of hope, because it looked as if Chelsea were home and dry.
Well, it's certainly thrown the cat amongst the pigeons down at the bottom as well, and we're just watching Swansea Middlesbrough coming to an end, 1 point each for them, which is probably less helpful to Middlesbrough than it is to Swansea, really.
Yeah, it is. Swansea, to be fair to Paul Clement, when they first went in, won 4 games out of 6, I think, and looked safe. But the last couple of weeks have been stuck back in it again. But a point's much better for Swansea than it is Middlesbrough, because they just can't score a goal. Middlesbrough, it's okay defending well and keeping clean sheets every now and then, but they just don't look like scoring goals at all. And,
no.
I worry for them massively. I really do.
Yeah, they're actually lucky not to have lost that game, because Swansea were all over them towards the end. Certainly. What do you think of a prediction for the City Arsenal game, Paul?
I can see City winning quite comfortably, guys.
Really?
Just purely from what I said. Arsenal, when they're at it, they're a good team. The full-backs push high, but just the form of the front three of City at the minute, especially Leroy Sané, I think there could be spaces in behind the Arsenal back four. And if they defend like they did against West Brom a few weeks ago, I could see City scoring quite a few goals. OK,
so you think City will win, but nevertheless, whatever happens for the rest of this season, Paul, Pep Guardiola is still on trial, isn't he? The jury is still out. Yeah,
it is. But I think if you ask Pep, and he was being completely honest about it at the start of the season, he probably knew that the squad wasn't strong enough to go and win the league this year. It would have been virtually impossible for him to go. And yes, he made signings, but to go in and sign 20 players and get rid of 20 players, you just can't do that nowadays. And he'll know where he needs to strengthen. I'm sure there'll be 5 or 6 big names coming in the summer, and then we can start judging them then. But at the minute, they're pushing top 4. City want to win the league, the owners want to win the league, and the fans want them to. But they've got an FA Cup semi-final coming up. Yeah. And if they could cement that, get to the FA Cup final, get a bit of silverware, it's going to put them in great shape for next year.
Timothy Dalton says Anders and one or two other people was in 2 Bond movies.
Living Daylight and Licence to Kill.
Yeah, you've just read that, haven't you? And the Nimble advert song was She Flies Like a Bird, says Taximan, by Honeybus.
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 Never heard of them.
I've never heard of them either.
They are one-hit wonder.
I think they probably were.
Yeah,
and Montgomery says, MG, tell Mike Parry that Matt Monro sang Somewhere from West Side Story. It's brilliant.
Well, not the one that was
somewhere.
used.
Not Over the Rainbow.
No. What I mean is, he doesn't mean the track in West Side Story that would have been on the official soundtrack of the film, does he?
What?
He means he sung a cover version of it, doesn't he?
Well, no, it means that he sang the song in West Side Story.
Did he?
Oh, here's a story about the bouncing bomb.
Oh, right, yeah, go on, yeah.
Apparently he was washed up on a beach in Kent. Must have bounced quite a long way from Putney.
Sorry, what are you talking about now?
It says here, a World War II bouncing bomb, which was trailed prior to the Dam Busters raid, has been discovered on a beach in Kent.
Right.
This is from today.
Right.
The May 1943 raid is one of the most memorable British war victories, and now a piece of one of their iconic explosives has washed ashore on a picturesque beach.
Oh, well, it must be another
Culver
one.
Beach near Herne Bay.
Yeah. Well, they did a lot of practising. You've got to remember that.
I think you've read this and thought this was the bomb. Yeah, that's exactly what's happened. You shouldn't have popped into that Wetherspoons on the way in. Because you've become completely and utterly flummoxed.
Don't be ridiculous.
See, look, that's what it looks like. It doesn't look anything like the other one I showed you, which looks like a tiny little wheel.
I told you it was only a part of it. It just broke off. That was all. Yeah, don't worry about it.
And here's someone else that says, "Can't Let Maggie Go" was the actual name of that song.
Can't Let Maggie Go.
She flies like a bird.
Yeah.
Can't Let Maggie. And also, a couple of people have sent in very helpfully colourful pictures of Foynaven.
Foynaven.
Excellent. Look there from the time and
Oh,
just before the pile-up.
Yeah, just before the pile-up. Yeah.
See, it's interesting what you said there, because when we talked about famous national races,
exactly.
I always remember the one that was there was an IRA bomb which was supposedly discovered, and they had to call off the whole race, didn't they?
I thought it was a false start in which they.
Well, there was a false start.
Oh yeah, you're right. There was an IRA bomb one year in which they emptied the course.
Yeah, and they emptied the course, and the race didn't happen.
Yeah, that's it.
And I can't remember exactly when that was. But I think it was sometime in the early 90s, and then. The one where they kept having the false starts, but they did eventually run the race.
They did, yeah. Except that the guy who was leading in the false start one thought he'd won it, didn't he? Because nobody managed to get a message to him. Right. Stop riding,
Which is
come back.
I mean, it is always a great. And I mean, I don't know what it's going to be like this year. I guess we'll find out during the course of this week. But I mean, have they weakened the race any? Have they lowered the jumps again? Because remember they did that last year, I think, a little bit, didn't they?
And do you know what? Somebody told me when I went there one year and they'd lowered the jumps. He said that's more dangerous for the horses, and I said, why? He said, well, the reason that the horses are so wary of these jumps is because they are so tall and so wide, and they're so unused to them. The horses, in their own intelligence, gird themselves to make a massive leap over these fences.
Right.
He said, when you lower those fences and the horses don't have to be as on their guard, as vigilant, they make mistakes and they land on top of the fences and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, right.
That's what he told me.
Fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
We're nearly out of time, by the way, but we've got a little bit more time because I've got to ask you about the upholsterer situation.
Oh,
and we need an update on that. We'll get that next right here on TalkSport.
Yep.
Because it is Sunday afternoon, and of course I don't normally work on a Sunday, as you know, some spiritual guidance may be required for some people. So it's time for the Porky Sermon. What we normally do is I'll read you a passage of the good book.
Yes.
You will interpret it then for everybody else into what we could call modern day language.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
This is from James 1,
okay,
verses 13 to 15.
Oh, I know it,
Yeah. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then, when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin, and sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death. It's a bit of a downbeat one, isn't it?
Yeah. Now I know what this is all about. So you have to interpret it. You have to. Well, I mean, this is all about really. It's about not giving in.
Not giving in.
Not giving in to the flesh.
Pleasures of the flesh.
Pleasures of the flesh. Yeah. And not giving in to the, some would say pleasures, others would say devilment of nefarious substances,
Uh-huh.
which include, alcohol and that kind of stuff, okay? But it says every man is tempted when he's drawn away of his own lust and enticed.
Yes.
So this is really all about the temptation that's sitting on your shoulder, okay?
Yes.
And the third paragraph, then when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin, and sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death. Do you know what this is all about?
No.
Do you know what the Almighty has pinged into our studio today?
What has he pinged in?
He's praising you for giving up smoking,
Is he?
and he's saying to you, you've got to stick with it.
Okay.
Because I think he knows, perhaps more than anybody else, the difficulty you're having with it,
Yes.
the temptation you're facing every day,
True.
the temptation you face in every break in the studio,
Uh-huh.
the temptation when you're driving home and sometimes you think, I'm just going to stop, I'm going to pull into a garage, I'm going to buy a packet of cigarettes, I'm going to walk in that field and I'm going to start smoking.
Yes.
That is happening to you, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
That is happening to you.
It is occasionally, yeah.
But no, it's happening to you every day.
Luckily, I've will of steel.
It's happening every day.
Yeah.
Let no man say when he is tempted, I'm tempted of God. So what that really means is that you are not tempted to ask for forgiveness for what would be a sin in your own head.
I see.
God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. So what he's saying is, don't use me as an excuse, and the forgiveness factor is relative, okay?
I see. Okay.
But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Now, on this particular occasion, for once in your life, because of your alley cat lifestyle, we are not talking about the pleasures of the flesh here.
Okay.
I only told you that to
Well,
find
I'm
out there was
gratified.
still a twinkle in your eye for that sort of thing.
I'm gratified.
And I'm glad to report there wasn't,
No,
okay?
no.
And do not be enticed. Then, when lust hath conceived, lust in this occasion is the desperate
The
urge
foul
you have
weed,
to get back on the foul weed.
Yeah.
That's why I mentioned nefarious substances.
Yes.
Okay, you have to stand up to it. It bringeth forth sin.
Yeah.
Now, you see, what we're saying here is, are you actually keeping up this campaign of not smoking, which you tell us about, but we don't know whether you really are when you go down to the country.
I could be lying.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt, saying you are. But is it... The real question that you're being asked here in this passage is, are you still not doing it, A, because you realise it's bad for your health, and it's appalling to other people, and it makes you undesirable and antisocial, on all those reasons, or are you doing it because you've said to yourself, I have to prove in my own mind that I'm man enough to say, when I'm not going to do something, I'm not going to do it?
Well, I would say probably...
Which of those two?
Probably the former rather than the latter, to be honest. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't need to prove anything to myself.
Well, look at the warning at the end. When it is finished, bringeth forth death. Now, that does not mean death in the sense that life will...
it's like a tarot card type death.
Yeah. Life will not channel out of your body. You will not be laid to rest or anything like that.
Right.
What it means is, for you, it will be the death of your ambition to prove to yourself you're a man of principle.
Yes.
And for the very last time in your life...
So it's a good thing.
For your very last time in your life, you can do something worthwhile with your own miserable existence and feel good about it.
That's great.
The end. Amen.
Thank you very much indeed. I must say, it's the first time that the Porky sermon's been just about me. I felt quite grateful, really, because normally you're addressing it to the general public, but for it to be that specific about me,
Amen.
To know that the Almighty is watching me so closely.
I'm telling you, that's what's going on, man.
It's all good. A lot of money I'm saving as well, by the way, by not smoking.
Well, do you know what you should do?
What?
You should think about improving some other area of your body that's been badly damaged by your smoking over the years.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I could do.
You know, you could think
Get some
about
liposuction.
Sorry?
Get some liposuction.
Yeah, you could do. You know
that.
You know that when you're inhaling tobacco and nicotine, it goes as far as the end of your big toe.
Does it?
And it will take up to 10 years for that to filter out of your body.
Yeah.
So
maybe I could suck it out quicker.
No, they can't, but I'm sure there are methods these days to remove the nicotine deposits in your body a lot more quickly than they did 20 or 30 years ago.
They could well be.
And, you know, if you can extract all sorts of other things, as you quite rightly say, liposuction, that sort of stuff, out of the human form, I'm absolutely certain there's treatment for ex-smokers to try and get themselves righted sooner than it used to be.
Indeed.
Of that I'm sure.
Now, how about this from Barkway, who says, has Porky ever used the phrase, I don't know? He might find it useful. Hashtag plank.
Why would I want to?
You see, you don't like to admit that you don't know something,
I do. I admit all the time.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
You didn't admit anything about the boat race, though, did you?
Well, you see, the boat race is a conundrum because, first of all, there's more than one boat race. Secondly, a boat race isn't. You don't actually time a boat race. By saying what time it actually starts.
Yeah.
You talk about the event.
I see.
And the event
so when it starts
at 4.
on television, it starts at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, exactly. The event starts at 4 o'clock.
Now, I'll tell you what we have
It's like
to talk
saying
about.
a concert starts at 10 o'clock at night, but the band don't come on until 11:40.
So when does the concert start?
The concert starts at 10 o'clock.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, they do.
No.
When they're all in there, the crowd are waiting.
No, the concert starts when they come on stage and start performing.
When do you think a World Heavyweight Championship bout starts?
Well, it depends.
Starts when you switch on the telly at
No,
10.
no, it doesn't.
But the
No.
fighters don't come into the ring
it starts
until
when
11:30.
I'll tell you when that starts. That starts when they walk out from the dressing room towards the ring. That's
yes.
when that starts.
Yes.
But I'll tell you what else we need to know about, because we haven't got much time, is the update on the upholstery situation.
Yeah.
For those who have not heard the shows in recent times,
Yes.
you've had a chair stolen from your premises.
Well-
and the guys walked off with it, supposedly under the guise of fixing it. But so far, you haven't heard from him.
I don't think it has been stolen. I mean,
Well, have you heard from the guy?
No, I haven't, no.
And he took the chair when? Thursday, right?
Was it Thursday
Yeah, it
or
was
Wednesday?
Thursday.
No, it was Wednesday. It was Wednesday, because he said...
No, it wasn't Wednesday, because you weren't home Wednesday.
Let me think.
It was Thursday.
Thursday. It could have been Thursday.
It was definitely Thursday.
Okay. Well, I rang a number of upholsterers just to recap on it.
What, trying to track him down?
No. This was before he arrived, and then a guy arrived at my house.
Yeah.
And he did indeed.
He's walked off with your chair.
Well, I thought he was coming in with his toolbox to fix the chair, but he walked in, said hello, looked at it, and then picked it up and walked out with it. And
There's no evidence that he's actually an upholsterer either.
I said, "Where you go?" And he said, "I've got to take it back to the workshop."
Yeah.
So that was the only, that was the only issue really. And I have absolutely no. Why would somebody suddenly know to turn up at my place and suddenly knock on the door and say, "I'm taking your
Because
chair"?
you've been talking about it non-stop on the radio ever since.
Talking about chairs, by the way, and things inside the house and furniture and all that.
Oh, yeah.
The modern fashion now for bathrooms and all that kind of stuff, right, is to have a bath actually in the bedroom instead of the bathroom.
What?
To have a self-standing bath in the middle of your bedroom.
Oh, you mean like a bath sort of on legs, as it were?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
But fully connected to all the plumbing and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, how do you do that? Under the floor, I suppose?
You have to do it under the floor.
Yeah.
Now, the point is...
I do like those self-standing baths.
Yeah, but in your bedroom. Why would you want one in your bedroom?
Well, so you could have a bath in nice comfort surroundings.
Well, you can have a bath in comfort in a bath in a bathroom.
You might want to have a bath with somebody else.
Yeah, you might. Well, you can do that in a bathroom as well.
Well,
if the
yeah,
bath's
but
big
it's
enough.
handier if you're in the bedroom, isn't it?
Well, I don't know, because the problem is that under building regulations, I know this, of course, because I studied this at the University of the Trent.
No, you know this because you own several slum landlord properties.
Under building regulations, you cannot actually have
can't
water.
plumb.
You can't. You're absolutely right. You can't plumb water appliances into a room that has electrical contact points.
Really?
Yeah, that's why bathrooms don't. That's why bathrooms only have the ones for electric razors and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So you have to be very careful.
But presumably, when you say are in a hotel room or something like that, or
Yeah.
you're in or you've seen these pictures of people with a bath, they've somehow got around that, right?
Well, you don't often see them in a bedroom. You normally see them in a room that is the bathroom, but it doesn't look like a traditional bathroom because there's no
Because it's
shower.
like a bigger
and
room
there's
or
no,
something.
and it has it just has a self-standing bath. When I stayed in Richard Branson's bedroom
In Richard Branson's bedroom.
Yes,
now.
on Necker
No,
Island.
You stayed on Necker Island.
Yes.
You didn't stay in his bedroom.
I had access to Richard Branson's own bedroom.
You had access to his bedroom.
Yes,
well,
yeah.
You didn't stay in it.
I'm not sure whether I did or not, in the sense that there were a lot of people there. And
What, in the bedroom?
Yes.
How many?
Well,
I didn't know it was that kind of holiday.
He has a big terrace there. People go out and sort of, eat
Lie
and
about.
drink and all that kind of stuff. But what I was going to say
Seen the
is,
time, by the way.
he didn't actually have a self-standing bath in his bedroom, but he had a bath, shower, and everything else
All right.
on the same floor as his bedroom. There were no walls.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
It was very open
Some
plan.
open plan, yeah.
Very open plan.
Well, that's all right. What's wrong with that?
Well, it's it's spectacular.
You wouldn't like that, would you?
And also the shower is outside permanently all year round.
Yeah, well, that's
because
fine.
it never rains.
There's nothing wrong with that either.
It's an outdoor shower.
Yeah. Well, you can do
that's
that
good.
when you live in the Caribbean.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. Yeah, it's very
you can't
good.
really do it in Stockwell, Surrey, though.
You can't actually.
I mean,
no.
you could put one
you
out
get
on
arrested.
You could put one out on your Porky Penthouse roof garden.
On DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM. The warm-up with the two mics on Talk